We are going next to Michael from Texas. Michael from Texas, welcome to the David Pakman Show. What's on your mind today? Michael from Texas, please, welcome. Let's not have things go sideways so quickly here. And last chance for Michael from Texas. Go.
Hi, David. I wanted to get your thoughts on, Brianna Joy Gray. So recently I saw a debate with her between her and Kyle.
Michael, I'm so sorry to interrupt. It sounds like you're underwater. Is there anything we can do? I heard Brianna Joy Gray had a debate with someone. I know very little about her. I know she has a show, but I've never seen more than a couple minutes of it, and it's been at least a year or two. Can we do anything with your audio so we can better understand each other?
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Oh, that is so much better. What did you just do?
It was just my phone. So I recently saw a debate with her and Kyle a few weeks ago. They were just debating policy. Sorry, stuttering a bit. Policies such as Democrats delivering.
This is Brianna Joy Gray, the podcaster, and Kyle Kulinski. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay.
So one thing I've noticed is she seems to have like a problem with the actual focusing on policy rather than, just, I don't know. She seems to have like some type of purity test where it seems she doesn't actually care about policies.
These are like purity. I'm just trying to understand this, Michael. She has purity tests for what? For who counts as a real progressive?
Yeah. In general, in policy, like,
what's an example?
For example, is like recently Biden did some student loan forgiveness. Apparently that's not good enough. Basically, I want you to know, these far lefty people, is there any way to get through to them in terms of policy, or is this just a thing we're going to have to deal with?
Well, listen, Michael, I really know very little about Brianna Joy Gray, again, beyond just that she has a podcast that I once saw a few minutes of. But what I could definitely speak to is so purity tests in general, I find problematic because number one, they often reduce complicated issues to just simple tests. Now, when you say this to the people making the purity test, they'll go, no, these are simple issues. You're lying by saying it's complex. Okay, fine. It reduces issues that some of us believe are complex to a simple test. They divide and fragment the movement, even among people who might agree on 95% of what should be done. They limit the size of the tent for who will kind of join this left-wing movement. They encourage digging your head in the sand. Like, I think purity tests are almost always a bad idea. Now, if you want to say to me, David, would you be against a purity test like, should Jews be killed? If you think the answer is yes, you're just, no. Okay, now we're getting a little bit crazy, right? I'm not talking about that. There are obviously some basics that we all probably need to agree upon to be able to productively dialogue. But I think that the purity test is a real problem. The other element of this that you're mentioning, which I think is a problem, and again, I have no idea what Brianna Joy Gray thinks about it.
Well, right now, negotiators are scrambling to reach a deal and avoid the biggest health care strike in U.S. history. At midnight Pacific time, a contract for Kaiser Permanente employees ran out.
Yeah, more than 75,000 workers across the country will strike starting Wednesday if they can't reach a deal. Kaiser Permanente says operations will be continuing as normal this morning, but the clock is ticking. They released a statement just a few hours ago saying they reached tentative agreements in 4 spots, but continue to negotiate. We're going to talk with some union members right now. I want to introduce them. Caroline Lucas, the executive director for the Coalition of Kaiser Permanente Unions, and ultrasound tech Georgette Bradford. So good morning to both of you. Thank you for waking up with us this morning. I want to talk about Kaiser Permanente's statement in a second. But first to you, Georgette, a big part of all this is staffing shortages and what it's doing to healthcare workers and patients. What has it been like?
Thank you for asking that question, Omar. As an ultrasound technologist with Kaiser for nearly 20 years, I've never seen it this bad. For me in the facility, my coworkers are stressed, they're burnt out, leading to injuries. And we're also losing fellow coworkers to the burnout and the heavy workload because of the Kaiser short staffing crisis. But what does this mean to my patients? I do breast imaging. I work in a breast imaging center. And so a lot of my patients are coming in because they fell a lump or because something's been seen on their mammogram. And when they're delayed by weeks to get their exam, the amount of torture and anguish and worry that is inflicted on my patients not only is unacceptable, but I feel it's immoral. And I wouldn't want that to happen to my family member. I wouldn't want it to happen to your family member. And that's something that Kaiser executives can avoid by bargaining in good faith and coming to the table to fix the short staffing crisis.
So Caroline, then lay out for us what union workers are asking for. Of course, I'd imagine it would include addressing the staffing shortages, but what else?
Absolutely. What we are worried about is fixing long-term the Kaiser staffing crisis. This has been a crisis that's been brewing for years, and Kaiser executives just aren't acting with the urgency that we need to create some long-term stable solutions to this crisis.
And Georgette, you laid out a little bit of what you had been through, in your more than a decade there. How have things shifted in your time? I know you said you've never seen things this bad. How have they shifted, and what have you heard from other workers, especially we're not that far removed from what I'm sure was an incredible strain on you all during the COVID-19 pandemic?
Yes. What we've seen and what I've seen in the change is a lack of the available staff to see our patients, not only in a timely manner, as I spoke to that one patient that had to wait weeks to get their exam, but also when we get them in the exam room, having to wait minutes, sometimes up to an hour or more just to be seen. I've had patients even leave in the middle of their exams between a mammogram and an ultrasound because the wait was entirely too long. I've dealt with coming in weeks on end where before we even start the day, we're already short-staffed. We're already working in the hole. And that has progressed constantly. It's escalating. It's been compounded by the pandemic. The pandemic has caused our members to leave the industry early retirement. We have lost members. We've lost over 60 members in my union to COVID. And so this is a crisis of a healthcare staffing situation in our facilities.
So Caroline, what do you know about where negotiations stand and how workers are preparing for this strike? Can it be avoided? And if I can go back to ask my first question to you again, if you can lay out what exactly the union is asking for. Again, you're asking for raises and job protections as well, correct?
Absolutely. So let me just say, Kaiser executives can avoid this today by reaching solutions, by reaching long-term solutions. Wages and benefits are an important component of an ultimate agreement that protects staffing levels that makes sense for patients and for workers. It's one component, it isn't the only component. What we really need is deep investments in the infrastructure that helps secure our workforce. And that's something that we haven't seen Kaiser act creatively about. Kaiser executives haven't listened or bargained in good faith with the frontline healthcare workers who have the solutions to a lot of these complex, thorny issues.
How are the negotiations going? Do you know? And is a strike avoidable at this point?
Absolutely, a strike is avoidable. No worker goes into healthcare to be out on strike. They all go into healthcare to provide that healthcare to folks. So we are hoping that Kaiser executives show up and listen and bargain in good faith. We are here day and night. We have been here day and night and will continue to be here until the moment folks walk out Wednesday morning.
And Georgette, we've seen strikes in the auto industry, the entertainment industry, now potentially healthcare here as well. Does that say anything to you as someone who is in a workforce that could potentially be affected when you see some of the issues they are fighting for? Does any of that resonate with you?
It does resonate with me in two ways. It resonates with me in that I know that there needs to be a sea change, that it's time for workers to really stand up for not only the communities that they serve, but also the work that they do. It's clear that the frontline workers in any industry are the experts in what they do. And I think that is kind of the genesis of what some are calling a hot union summer with all of this activity. But I will say, though, that we have an opportunity.
Well, I think that was very good. That last 5 minutes was outstanding because the judge essentially conceded that the statute of limitations that we won at the Court of Appeals is in effect. Therefore, about 80% of the case is over. I was going to come out and say that, as you know, we're not entitled to a jury, which is pretty unusual in the United States of America. So we think it's very unfair that I don't have a jury, but the judge's last statement was very fair. And if I read it right, I'll let perhaps one of the lawyers speak to it. But Cliff, maybe you'll speak to it if you would. But the way I interpret that, and the way everyone else in the room seems to interpret that, is that the statute of limitations is a very real thing in this country. And that would be about 80% of this case would be over. Could somebody speak to that, please? Cliff, you want to talk about?
Sure. So based on the judge's comments, at the end of the trial today, it would appear that he is agreeing that all of the transactions that closed prior to 2014 are now out of the case.
Which is about 80% of the case. And it's also something that we won on appeal, but was not accepted by this court, but now seems to be accepted by this court. As far as the jury is concerned, it's much different now. I must tell you that it was 20 minutes ago. We were going to come out and complain that, in this country, you're entitled to a jury. But we very much appreciate the judge's decision today, or his statement today, on statute of limitations, which is a very big thing. It's a limited time period. And we did nothing wrong. And if you look at the statements, they showed that even in 2011, I guess the number was 258 million in cash. Very strong company. I don't believe we really, maybe I wouldn't do a couple of deals or something, but I wouldn't have even needed to go to banks. Banks loved our business. They loved our deals. They weren't defrauded. They lost no money. They made money. They had the finest attorneys that there are. Frankly, their attorneys were better than my attorneys. And they made a lot of money, and they considered me a very good client. I paid them back on time, on schedule. There was no default. They never even sent me a default letter. Not one. For years, never got a default letter. And there's no case here. There's no victim. The banks aren't a victim. The insurance companies are a victim. Everybody got paid. It's a terrible, terrible thing. This was for politics. Now, it has been very successful for them because they took me off the campaign trail. Because I've been sitting in a courthouse all day long instead of being in Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, or a lot of other places I could be at. This is a horrible situation for our country. It's never happened before. It's election interference. They're interfering with the presidential election of 2024, and the people of our country see it. But this was a big, I say surprise, but it was a great credit to the court that the judge was willing to do this. He sort of overruled himself, and I greatly respect that. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. We may. I mean, I'd love not to. I'd love to be campaigning instead of doing this. Because I built a great company.
Mentioned earlier, we recorded this interview with Cornel West shortly before his campaign announced that Peter Dow would be his new campaign manager, and that has led to a real debate on the left and many concerns being raised by supporters of the campaign. For those who don't know, Peter Dow is a former Democratic Party strategist who, among other things, played a key public role in the 2016 Hillary Clinton campaign, during which he repeatedly made political attacks on Bernie Sanders. Peter Dow has since publicly broken with the Democratic Party and supported Bernie Sanders in 2020. It's totally understandable that activists and working people who've been repeatedly sold out have raised concerns about this decision by the West campaign. For one, not only is Dow's break with the Democratic establishment relatively recent, just in the last few months, he was the campaign manager of yet another Democratic Party campaign, Marianne Williamson's. I do think this is a mistake by the Cornel West campaign, in particular because this decision has acted to divide West's current base of supporters. The concerns that have been raised have a real basis in reality. It's not clear what Dow's politics are at this point or where he is headed, and it's important to ask the question, as many have, why put someone who was until only a short while ago with the Democratic Party at the very helm of an independent left campaign, even if their break from the Democrats is genuinely intentioned? However, in our approach to these questions, we also cannot afford to lose sight of the fact that the Cornel West campaign is offering a sorely needed left alternative to the utterly bankrupt candidacies of Biden and Trump and to the two parties of big business. In the absence of the West campaign, working people have no real options in this election, and this will lead to many of them not voting at all or voting for Trump's dangerous right-wing populism. I don't think Bernie Sanders made all the right personnel decisions either, but my main concern with Bernie Sanders was not his staffing decisions, but his capitulation to the Democratic Party in endorsing Biden, and since then, how he has provided cover to Biden and the Democrats' ongoing betrayals of working people. Right now, we need to see how things develop with the Cornel West campaign, including with Peter Dow. In my view, the main questions facing the campaign, as we raised in this interview, is whether Cornel West will consistently and clearly campaign on his working class demands, whether he will run all the way to November 2024 rather than endorse Biden, and whether he will give his campaign a mass grassroots character, including by organizing mass rallies. And I was not entirely happy with Dr. West's response to us on the question of organizing rallies. He first said that they need to quote unquote pace themselves. I think there is an urgency on this question. By this time in the Bernie Sanders campaign in 2015, as I said, more than 100,000 people had attended his mass rallies, and many more had heard about the program of demands Bernie was running on. The clock is ticking here, and we urgently need mass grassroots participation. The best way for us to keep West's campaign accountable to working people is for us to give it a grassroots character, to get involved, and to speak out publicly against mistakes like this one.
It's great to see Shama putting content out there, Workers Strike Back, have their own YouTube page to go along with their activism, something that we advocated for. And that's why we started RBN, because we saw for a very long time, not only was left media weak, like the lead left media voices were people like Kyle Kulinski and TYT before. Not only that, but there was a disconnect between, you have people who either only engage in activism without educating the masses, or you have people who be on YouTube without doing activism. So it's great to see not only us engage in RBN chapters and be on YouTube. It's good to see Worker Strike Back not only doing the great work that they're doing. I was with them earlier this year, but also releasing great content, holding the left accountable. Like, people need to understand what we mean when we say horizontal movement. You know what I mean? Not top down, not we making a decision, you guys shut the fuck up and like it. And you guys shut the fuck up and accept it. No, that is not the movement I'm looking for. It never been the movement that we've been looking for at RBN. And if we really want the Dr. West campaign to succeed, we gotta sharpen. We have iron sharpen iron. We gotta hold them accountable. Right. That's not what you see out of the two-party duopoly in any meaningful way. We gotta run shit completely different. CJ, I know you want to chime in, so I'll pass to you. I got a lot to say. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, what you're saying, Nick, how we're doing it is such a shock to American political discourse, even on the left, because I have my critique of the Cornel picking burnt Peter Dow, but if people listen to my critique in the same video, I said I'm for the movement. This just means I'm not voting for him in November. This doesn't change the move. I said that in the video, and people act like I didn't say that. They act like I just said dump Cornel, and nobody said that. We have Cornel West running. I have the advantage of living, or the benefit, I should say, of living in California. So I have an even better candidate that's to the left of Cornel West. So why would you even have a problem that I'm picking somebody whose leading campaign slogan is "We must end capitalism"? You get what I'm saying? So it's the shock of the critique. Understand, people act like when they had these revolutions, do you think people were just nice, or they was arguing, knocked down, dragged out fights, sometimes leading to physical fights, and then they handshake at the end? And this is what it takes for movements to actually stay rooted in the ground roots, is these sort of debates. And I like that somebody in the comments of this video that I played, and I'm gonna go back to it, and we're gonna bring you in 1 second, Nico, but I'm gonna bring this back up before we go back to this video, because somebody in the comments says, finally, I think it was Lucy, Blue Moon, Lucy.
Yeah, my friend.
Finally, somebody prominent says it, because I took a lot of heat. I took a lot of heat for the shit that I took a lot of heat for my stance. And the thing is, RBN is known for that. I take that with pride. We are known for going out and saying what nobody's saying months in advance, and then they catch up to us. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen here. I'm just simply saying we're used to taking the heat at this moment. But to see her come out and say it just, to me, crosses the T, it dots the I of the point that is made, that we must move on with the movement, as she said. But we must ask the question, what the fuck is this decision? Like, you get what I'm saying? Like, that's the question. That doesn't eliminate the question.
The left need to take a failure is not an option approach. Like, no more. Like, I was guilty of this. Like, I'm learning from my mistakes, guys. I was on the Bernie campaign. My friend Nico, people warned us about Bernie. Nico was one of them. Like, I would see some red flags, and I'm like, all right, it's cool. Come on, let's just stay positive. Let's keep it moving. I don't like what Bernie said about Joe, my friend. I was on the Bernie campaign saying so many mistakes, but I didn't say anything because I wanted to be nice. You know what I mean? How did that end, fam? How did that work out?
We can bring in Nico in so he can be a part of this segment right here. Let's bring him in.
Yeah, what's poppin', Nico?
My apologies. I was on color people time. My lighting was acting crazy. It's actually low key still acting crazy, but it's all good. But yeah, man. Kashama, gospel. Like, it's very rare that she has a take that I disagree with. So, and I'm glad, like y'all said, like that she said something, because I also know that Dr. West respects her, right?
Right.
We're just, talking heads behind the microphone. Although Dr. West may have a level of respect for us, the reality is there is limits. And the truth is, obviously, Kashama has more experience, not only as an independent candidate, but somebody who won. Right. So it's different.
Right.
It's different for her. Right. And obviously age and experience might play a factor in that. But yeah, like, so, okay, maybe you don't want to listen to us. Maybe you don't want to listen to Jay. Maybe you don't want to listen to Nick. Maybe Jimmy said it too rough. Maybe, you know what I'm saying? Like, maybe Bree was being too nice. But when Kashama Swan is saying the same thing that we're all saying, but just in a different, maybe different tonality, but with different experiences and credentials and acumen behind her words, like, you better listen. because there are people who will stop supporting Dr. West if Kashama Sawant is like, like, right? Like, that's the one. Maybe we can't sway anybody, but her.
And we want to talk more about some of the challenges facing Ukraine. Let's bring in Alexei Goncharenko. He is a Ukrainian member of parliament for the Odessa region and joins us from the capital of Kyiv. Alexei, thank you so much for taking the time. Obviously, a lot of focus on what's happening in Europe and what's happening in Washington, D.C. with a stopgap measure put into place to keep the U.S. government open, but strikingly omitting $6 billion in aid for Ukraine. President Biden says that overwhelming support for Ukraine still exists and that money will come in the future, but it is symbolic that that money was omitted to get a deal done. Speaker McCarthy also says that he supports Ukraine, but not at the expense of U.S. border patrol and safety. What is your response to that now that it seems to have turned into somewhat of a binary issue? Support U.S. borders or help support Ukraine?
Hello. First of all, I think that is a false choice. With all respect, I think that U.S. borders should be secured. It's a question of the United States of America and its people, and they're absolutely capable to do this. But to have secure United States and secure world, there is a need to support Ukraine. Because without this, if Ukraine would fail, and Ukraine will fail without United States support to Putin, to Russia, then Russia, emboldened Putin, will attack, and he will go further, and he will attack European countries because he wants to rebuild Russian Empire and Soviet Union, how he sees it. And then it will be already American soldiers and officers fighting against Russian army. Today, no one American soldier or officer is taking part in this war. We don't have any boots on the ground, and United States can prevent this awful scenario of a really third world war just by financial and military support to Ukraine, which is, I think, the best possible option and one of the best investments in American history. With just 3% of United States military budget, Ukrainian army destroyed 50% of conventional weaponry potential of second biggest rival of the United States in the world after China, Russia.
Alexei, Zain here, what would you say to American lawmakers, American Republican lawmakers, to convince them of that? Because there is this perception among the GOP, especially hardline GOP members, Republican lawmakers, that the war in Ukraine is not their problem, that the war in Ukraine is Ukraine's problem, and that America has already done enough, borderline done too much. You're pointing out the fact that, listen, if Ukraine loses this war, if America allows Ukraine to lose this war, there are far-reaching consequences for the entire world, that the international rules-based order is in jeopardy. How would you convince Republican lawmakers of that argument?
First of all, as I told you, this is a great investment by securing and keeping alive American soldiers and officers. Just imagine, like I met one American officer, Marine, he said that for all his life, he's now retired, but he said, all my life, I was preparing for the war with Soviet Union and with Russia. And now you're stopping Russia without any one American soldier and officer involved and killed. I think that is great. Secondly, what I would tell to lawmakers from Republican side, what would President Reagan say about what they're doing today, in support of Ukraine? Thirdly, what I would say, if Putin will continue his aggression, the whole Europe will be in mess. And Europe is the biggest trade partner of the United States of America. So millions of jobs in the United States are dependent from what's going on in Europe. All
Welcome to edition of the Nick and CJ show. I'm one of your hosts. I'm CJ. What's up, Nick?
What's poppin', my friends, my family? Welcome back. This is gonna be a fantastic week of RBN Live, and it's been hilarious how unhinged the Ukraine supporters have been.
Yes,
they just say stuff, hoping people have no prior knowledge and hoping it stick. That guy is an unhinged neocon spreading conspiracy theories. The conspiracy theory that they've been running with for the last few months. To convince the average American, like some average guy in Nebraska or some mom who live in Nevada, right, or some struggling worker in Florida, they've been using this argument how they can convince American workers to care about what's going on in Ukraine, a country thousands and thousands and thousands of miles away. Not they are neighbors to Russia. They've never been part of Western allyship. So the conspiracy theory they have planted in order to get people on board is that if we don't stop Russia and Ukraine, that they will continue their attack into Europe and possibly the United States of America. Now, this is something that only people who watch corporate news all the time and their brains have been fried will actually believe. Mm-hmm. Because they will also make the argument, CJ, that the war in Ukraine is so important because in the reason why that we are winning is that the Russian military is being degraded. Russia is losing. They're losing a ton of men. Russian military has been exposed as weak and ineffective, right? So how can Russia be losing to a country that have a small military presence in Ukraine, but at the same time, they are a threat to Europe and a threat to the global security world order? That doesn't make sense, right? Are you degrading the Russian military or not, right? And this is the bullshit neocon arguments that the NATO left buys, CJ. Bernie Sanders is tweeting out his enthusiasm for fighting wars against Russia. So Bernie Sanders heard the neocon argument and he's going along with it. Bernie Sanders think that Russian army is going to be a threat to us, CJ.
Nick, when I saw this clip, first, I just happened to see this. I already had some sort of thing set up because I felt like, man, it's so much Ukraine, even though it wasn't in the description. I'm like, it's so much Ukraine shit. We have to talk about Ukraine. There's no way we cannot talk about Ukraine with the funding issues. But when I saw this clip, I was amazed because, this should be called a little short. Aaron, this is a little short segment of Propaganda Report. Let me bring this back up just for one moment. Nick, you understand they introduced him as some sort of Ukrainian elected official or something in the Ukraine government. If you hear the talking points, this is either the CIA wrote what he's saying and he just rehearsed it, or this is somebody else, man. There's no way. You hear the points. What Ukrainian-born person who loves their country and have seen several 100,000 people killed in the war would be on here praising, using as a reason for good that you don't have to send your people over here to die.
Yes.
Just let all of us. This is insane. Like when I was here, I was like, what? Because I wasn't really. You know how when you prepare for the show, by the time you get 90% of your show, now you're just kind of looking at different clips. So I just had this running and I started hearing, I'm like, what? And then when he got to the Ronald Reagan show, I was like, oh no, this is a CIA agent right here. Like, oh hell no. Bringing up Ronald Reagan. Go ahead.
They openly teamed up with Ronald Reagan and Mike Pompeo and John Bolton. And the NATO left is like, we're correct this time. And how crazy is this guy? This guy is supposed to be Ukrainian, as you said, or part of Ukrainian government, and he's openly bragging about the fact that they're sacrificing an entire generation of men in order for the West to achieve their geopolitical aspirations. And that's why my patience worn out on the NATO left, literally at least by the beginning of the year. I'm like completely done with them. Like they're oppositional, they are the enemy, they are Nazi collaborators. I have nothing but disdain. Because at least you understand why Mike Pompeo has this position. John Bolton has this position, right? Why Chris Christie has this position. because they don't care about human life. So the NATO left, the Bernie Sanders left. We're going to get to this later, and actually I may transition this very soon since we're talking about Ukraine, where Bernie is going full throat on this. The NATO left, the Matt Duss left, the TYT left. They legitimately believe they are the compassionate ones.
They do.
They think they are the pro-Ukrainian ones. We want to protect Ukrainians, so we got to go to war. War is peace. War is how we traditionally protect people, right? History is not real. Don't look at history. Don't look at history.
It's anti-logic. And let me read what it says on the screen. It does give his official title. He is a Ukrainian member of parliament. Yeah, and that's who he is. But it's completely unhinged. Go ahead, Nick. And then
and one thing I'll say, and I'll pass it back to you. You had hundreds and hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians that are dying, and I'll put this up just shortly.
Yeah, go ahead.
You had a counteroffensive that the West started manufacturing consent around this time last year. It's been going on for maybe 10 months or so now. You have, and this is what they have gotten, despite the massive, massive casualties of the Ukrainian people. The United States government even complained that Ukraine is too casualty averse, believe it or not. But despite that, CJ, Russia has gained more territory this year than Ukraine during their so-called counteroffensive. I think this was a good time to interject this because people like Bernie Sanders think, and the Bernie Sanders left, they think they are being humanitarian by saying, let's continue this slaughter in a war that they have no chance of winning. Why? Because the neocons, CJ, say that they want to do it to degrade the Russian military. So are we to believe that the Bernie Sanders NATO left truly believe that neocons who openly saying they care about sacrificing Ukrainian people really care about Ukrainians? At what point do we stop giving them the benefit of the doubt? Right? I don't. I legitimately don't. When I see Matt Duss, when I see Marianne Williamson, fam, I give no one benefit of the doubt. If you get this issue wrong, the people who get this issue wrong, Marianne Williamson, she wants Ukrainians to die so weapon manufacturers can expand their influence. Why should we give them benefit of doubt? Why should we give Matt Duss benefit of doubt? But sorry, I went long. I passed you.
No, what I was going to say is that I think they start from the conclusion, Nick, and work backwards because this is how they started. Bernie, AOC, all of them. Marianne, it's I want to be relevant. That means I have to pick a party. This is the blue party. They believe this and this. I can't go against these things or they're going to decapitate me politically. So I have to stay with that. Now I have to come up with reasons why this makes sense to my normal, supposedly left audience. That's what they work backwards. So that's why these sort of explanations are so easily like just swatted away. Like, that's stupid. This is this. And you know, this is this. And you saw that so potently in that interview with Marianne Williamson and Jimmy Dore. But go ahead. This is one of the videos I was going to bring up. So let's just get into the Ukraine shit right now.
I'll just dive into it.
Let's get into it right now.
We're going with the flow. You know how it is.
Yeah, we're going with it. Yeah.
So it's actually more nefarious than that, in my opinion. I think it's the same take. I don't think it's a different take in general. But my take is the progressives make a calculation. They're willing to destroy the conditions of the global working class in order to appease neocons in the Democratic Party. So Democrats may potentially, maybe support progressive policies in the United States. Let me repeat myself. Progressives like AOC and Bernie Sanders sell out to the military-industrial complex in hopes that people like Neera Tanden, Joe Biden, and people like Gavin Newsom and Hakeem Jeffries will give them a small progressive bone. They enable imperialism in order to get incrementalism that they are not even getting from the Democratic Party. You guys see the
say that again. Say that again, please. That has got to get on the shirt. That is making me tingle when you say they get they. What did you say for militarism? Say that line again.
Yeah. So they are willing to sell out to the military-industrial complex in order to have the illusion that they are getting incremental change in the United States. So they want to sell out the global working
for militarism.
Yeah, absolutely. That is it. I think that's a good. That's a great splurge.
Yeah, crumbs for bombs. Crumbs for bombs.
Yeah, this is the critique of social democrats by Marxists. This is the exchange they always make. That you know how people like Bernie and TYT, Kyle Kulinski, and them praise Sweden. You want to know who one of the largest arms dealers to Yemen during the Yemen genocide? Sweden. So yes, they got a great social democratic welfare state, right? But that welfare state is built upon blood. Built upon blood, imperialism, and exploitation of the global South. And United States Social Democrats know that, CJ. So they are making the same gambit that Social Democrats like in Sweden and Finland and Norway made. Where they said we're going to team up with NATO and the military-industrial complex in order to fund our social welfare state. So we're going to make sure the white people in our country is comfortable. But
so they're just projecting. They're just projecting that they love workers of all shades all over. That's just projection, then, Nick. That can't be true. This is why they can make the decision about Palestine. This is a perfect sort of end result of this sort of ideology. This is an example. Like this is how they read. Oh, for some NLRB appointments, let's go. We got to sell out Palestinians. That's it.
Yeah, they're weak on corruption and human rights. CJ, right. They are Kyle Kulinski, and this is what I said during the breakdown of Crystal Ball when she was chilling for Joe Biden. They are willing to be weak on human rights and corruption in order to get small incremental change. Right? And that's the gambit that we sniffed out from day one. And that's been the critique of Social Democrats that I looked more into once I realized they was losers, destined to lose, right? I was part of the Bernie campaign. I was part of the team, right? And then after seeing Bernie lose again, after seeing him call Joe Biden his good friend, having all these establishment plants like Chuck Rocha and all the infiltrators, you have Pramila Jayapal telling Bernie to drop out early. So after seeing the Bernie campaign fail multiple times, I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Like, how do we lose? So I studied the critique of social democracy. I read more about Marxism. What's to the left of this? Who actually won in the revolution? Mostly the people who followed the tenets of Marxist-Leninism, or the people who had successful revolutions. Meanwhile, social democrats are we don't know what the fuck to do. Our unions are sold out by capitalists. The working class are getting demolished. We're voting for our ICE budget, police budgets. Oops, we accidentally lost again. Pramila Jayapal. Oops, we accidentally lost. The United States Social Democrat left was literally manufactured by the CIA, the Democratic Party, and capitalists to have a weak left opposition. And once I realized that, once I actually study history and study how social democrats failed the capitalists, everything that Bernie Sanders AOC had did before and they continue to do made 100% sense. 100% sense, CJ. Like, it was very confusing to me. But once I understand what social democrats did, as I continue to see AOC and Bernie Sanders sold out, I'm like, damn. The Marxist critique is on point. They called all this shit. But I went long. Go ahead, CJ. I'll pass to you.
It's almost like
I have a
crystal
few things
ball.
I want to share on the Ukraine segment, but I'll pass to you first.
Yeah. No, for sure. So I figured
we can just shoot back and forth. But go ahead.
We'll just go with the flow. Because what I wanted to do was start out with the introduction, just add this Ukraine part, and then we can roll into the Bernie Sanders because there's Ukraine too. But I do want to start with kind of like some of the funding shit and just what's going on in Ukraine. Now, I found this. So if you read the segment, the segment title scrolling at the bottom, it says Ukraine war propaganda goes from ridiculous to SNL Hunger Game type level, right? And that's what we saw in the first clip. Go ahead, Nick, before I play this. Go ahead.
My apologies, but I predicted this. Remember what I said, guys? They was doing their best to overall avoid this big Ukraine debate, and it was kind of kicking it down the line. But I told you guys, once the election really started, once you had the real anti-war element in the House Republicans speaking out against the Ukraine war, the same way that squad should be pressuring Hakeem Jeffries and Nancy Pelosi, I told you guys it's going to come to the head, and you're going to see people like Bernie and Democratic operatives being forced to go on the offensive for Ukraine. But go ahead.
And that's exactly what we're seeing, and we're going to see that. I got some of that in this segment we're doing right now. So I'm glad you said that. But we're not going to watch this whole thing, but I just want you to see the level when we really have to take a step back, Nick, and just you you can see the proof in what I'm about to say. Just Google Ukraine funding and see the amount of articles that have been written about how we need to start funding this war. The fact that money was not passed and this shutdown deal 45 days, they have said, what the hell is going on here? And because it's never, not in my memory, Nick, like when the military industrial complex say, give me money, it's usually delivered on time or early. So they are in panic like mode that I've never seen. And they bring on this retired person in the military. Just watch 2 minutes of this. And I'm going to turn the volume after this right now.
In the American people and the people of Ukraine, that you can count on our support. We will not walk away. The vast majority of both parties, I'll say it again, Democrats and Republicans, Senate and House, support helping Ukraine. Stop playing games. Get this done.
Joining us now to talk about this, retired Lieutenant General Mark Hertling, a CNN military analyst. General Hertling, great to see you. That's the president there calling on Congress to get busy and pass that funding to continue to support the people in Ukraine, continue to support that fight against the Russians. That, of course, as you know, was snipped out of that stopgap spending measure to keep the government up and running. I guess your thoughts on this, General Hertling. What happens, and I suppose the scenario could emerge, what happens if Congress can't get it done and this funding dries up? What message does that send? What does that do to the Ukrainians?
Well, it's a couple things, Jim. First of all, there's a very small minority in Congress who are sabotaging the United States foreign policy, and they are influencing in a negative way a fight for democracy and sovereignty.
And I'm going to stop here. I held it bite my tongue long enough.
Yeah,
there's a couple of things. He has a couple of things. When they start bringing in retired generals, this means they're saying the propaganda game needs to be moved up, because rank and file names that's going to give it more validity, because they're not just taking our regular guess word. We need some generals, some FBI, former, heads of the CIA. Go ahead, Nick.
No, CJ, it's funny. You're exactly on the same page I was on, because mention how you see how they brought on retired military general. And I didn't watch this one, but I usually always watch those segments, because those are textbook U.S. propaganda segments. You can exactly see what the empire, the statements of the empire, the direction of the U.S. empire, when you see what retired United States generals say on these corporate news television shows. So that's a fantastic point. And I want to take a time to explain to you guys that they are complaining about democracy. So the United States has been so unhinged, CJ, for a very long time. Congress giving up their constitutional right to declare war, for example. We lived in a uniparty in a country controlled by the military industrial complex for so long. They're used to never having debate on war and issue of foreign policy. Having senators or Congress or people in government debate and have a giant showdown over the direction of a country's foreign policy is normal in a democracy. But you guys see how they're panicking about this? CJ, remember the quote you just said? Republicans are sabotaging U.S. foreign policy. So you're coming out as anti-democracy? The way a democracy works is you have representatives who have their perspective on what United States foreign policy would be. And based on the idea is public perception, based on who had the most public support, based on who's been elected the most, that what foreign policy would lead to. Now, the United States people have been anti-war my entire life, but there's no democracy in the United States. We live in an oligarchy. So we actually have a few Congress people that is speaking out on the Ukraine aid. So this is the first time they actually got real true pushback. And they are freaking out and panicking about it, CJ. Claiming, how dare we have a debate and conversation about war? Like, you guys understand how unhinged I view these people? Anyway, let's continue.
Logical effect. And I'm sure that there are leaders in Ukraine right now who are concerned about this. Our president, President Biden.
Why is that our concern?
Promised that this
exactly.
I'll be real quick because I don't want to be long.
No, go ahead.
You say how there's Ukraine public officials are concerned. Why, as an American, is that our concern? Ukraine is not our ally. It is. They are not. They have nothing to do with the state of our lives, the state of even United States interest, to put it in a neocon way. Even a neocon way, they don't serve United States interests. You had old school neocons in the late 90s and early 2000s that said that having Ukraine as a buffer state is actually beneficial to the United States and actually a boon to peace. But they don't want peace now, right? Anyway, let's continue.
It feels like this is more of and this is what the definition, I guess the definition of proxy war. It feels like the United States have forcibly hired missionaries that don't want to go to war with them, and that's what they're calling Ukraine.
Yeah,
that's what it feels like. That's why they want it, because it's like we're fighting a war, guys, and it's not even our bodies. It's almost like it's our avatars. They don't die in our real world of the United States. It just dies over in Ukraine. So it's a very sort of disgusting, like where you don't value just everybody's life. Yeah, go ahead.
Just to put it in a better way, think of the mindset that he cares more about what the Ukrainian government officials think than the American people, than the people protesting in Germany, than anti-NATO protests that is not being covered by Western media in France and Germany.
Right.
So it doesn't matter what we think, what the constituency of the Western countries think. They care about what neocons think and what Ukrainian government officials think. Says everything, but let's continue.
Yeah, just a little bit more, because we do have a bunch of receipts on this Ukraine. I at least have 4 more, so let's continue.
Yeah, but he also had a deal with the congressional Republicans that they would include this in the package in the first place in the initial deal that he made. So it will be a hard push, but in order to regain that trust, which we need on the multinational environment, this has to be done very quickly. There can't be any delays, because it's not only going to affect how other people see the United States, it's going to affect the way Ukraine continues with their offensive, which truthfully is gaining some momentum in both the.
Now he's lying. We both wanted to stop when he said that part. Go ahead, Nick. I'm going to take this down. And then if you want to put something up next.
You can continue your point, CJ. I was just saying that's false. And I'll show you guys the receipt before this segment, how Russia gained more territory and more ground this year. And I cannot emphasize enough, Russia hasn't been on an offensive. Ukraine has been on an offensive, and Russia still gained more than them. But CJ, go ahead. You can continue.
No, it's just a sad point. It's just a sad point. And I do have some other receipts. Now, I just want to insert some things about what sort of have been happening.
You have the Lindsay one, right?
Yes, that's the one I was just about to go to. So we're on the same wavelength.
Go ahead.
So let's watch. Now, I don't know if this is I got clips. Okay, let's first show the first clip. Because if you don't watch this entire interview, Nick, and let me share it first. If you don't watch this entire interview of Lindsey Graham when he goes on Face the Nation, that lady it was almost like he's her subordinate. He's like, what you gonna do? Like trying to instigate the situation. Let's listen to this clip. Now, this is a clip. This is not the entire interview, but hey, let's listen.
Have you asked Donald Trump, your friend, to come out and publicly support more aid to Ukraine and to push some of these skeptical members of the Republican conference?
I'll leave it up to him to what to do, but he wanted to get out of Afghanistan.
Well, Vladimir Putin has been praising him for his comments about Russia and Ukraine.
Here's what I'll say about President Trump. He did not pull the plug on Afghanistan, even though he wanted to. The biggest mistake we've made since the war on terror is withdrawing from Afghanistan. To President Trump and anybody else, if we pull the plug on Ukraine, that's 10 times worse than Afghanistan. There goes Taiwan. To stop funding Ukraine is a death sentence for Taiwan. Putin will keep going. You missed all of World War II if you don't know how this movie ends. To the Republicans who say Ukraine doesn't matter to us, you're wrong. Respectfully, you're wrong. The war gets bigger, not smaller. There goes Taiwan. If Ukraine can beat Russia, China's less likely to beat Taiwan, and Putin gets stopped.
Now, this is the second interview. This is the second interview, Nick, I have, where they always lead to Taiwan. The conversation goes to where they're saying, well, yeah, Russia, but this is all about Taiwan. What is this going to say to China? Go ahead, Nick, if you wanted to chime in.
There goes
I found the full interview, too.
We don't fund Ukraine. There goes Taiwan. How does that math work? You guys see how they just openly lie? For one, Taiwan is a part of China. Repeat after me. NATO acknowledges Taiwan as part of China. The United States has acknowledged Taiwan as part of China ever since they restored diplomatic relations in the 1970s. Repeat after me, neocons. Taiwan is China. China, through their grace, allows Taiwan to govern independently. And this is the status quo that 80% of Taiwanese people support. But Taiwan is just as much a part of China as Hawaii is the United States. In fact, there is more Chinese claim for Taiwan than there is United States claim over Hawaii.
Right.
Taiwan is, do you guys know Taiwan is 3 times closer than Hawaii is to the United States regarding China to the Taiwan to the mainland. Most people who have this Taiwanese derangement syndrome, especially people on the right, they can't point out Taiwan on the map, CJ. They think China's going across the seas. They think they're going next to Europe and taking over Taiwan. And that is what Lindsey Graham is presenting. Oh, we don't fund Ukraine. Oh, all of a sudden we're going to lose Taiwan. Taiwan is not the United States to lose. You guys see how there's levels and layers of propaganda? What he's saying is wrong on multiple dimensions because his conclusion is based on the premise that the United States somehow owns Taiwan. Imagine if China was arming United States Hawaiian sovereignty protesters, the Hawani K Trust of the world, right? The United States will use that as a pretext to go to war. Biden has sent weapons to Taiwanese separatists. They sent nuclear submarines to Australia to Japan in order to provoke China for maintaining their territorial sovereignty the same way that anyone else would. And the fact that they tie this to Ukraine, as you said before, CJ, just shows how desperate they are. And they really are hoping that people who are watching this have no idea where any of these countries are. Based on their analysis, Ukraine is right next to the UK. Taiwan is somewhere in Central America, right? And China has been the hostile foreign invader, and Russia has been the hostile foreign invader, crossing lands and oceans to Ukraine. But Ukraine is right next to Russia. There have been generational connections between the countries. People crossing borders for hundreds and hundreds of years. The same way with China and Taiwan. China originally lost Taiwan due to Japanese imperialism.
Imperialism, right.
But I can lecture you guys for Taiwan for days. I covered it so many times. But what Lindsey Graham said there is actually great to see, CJ, because they're outright panicking. Because I would love to have a NATO leftist on, have a Matt Duss on, play them a clip where Chris Christie and Lindsey Graham is talking about Ukraine, and I want to be like, do you guys agree with this analysis of the world right now? Which analysis makes more sense to you? The Social Democrat, the analysis of Lula? And once again, I'm purposely choosing people to my right here. More Social Democrat people who got Ukraine right. Do you agree with Lula's assessment of Ukraine where he blames NATO and the United States and said we must support peace? What is your criticism of Noam Chomsky's position on Ukraine? Once again, someone's to our right, a Social Democrat who's smart enough to get Ukraine right. So I would love to ask Matt Duss, a NATO leftist, that one day. Do you agree? What do you agree with regarding Lindsey Graham's take here? What do you disagree with regarding Noam Chomsky and Lula's take on Ukraine? But I'll let it continue. I think you guys give up on it. I'll pass it.
Yeah. So I got the full clip. It's not that long. We'll maybe listen to maybe 2 or 3 minutes of it, and then I'll pass it to you for any receipts. I got maybe 2 more. And I want to, and then we'll probably roll in Bernie and let it flow. Let's listen to this.
South Carolina Republican Senator Lindsey Graham. Good to have you here in person, Senator. You just voted for a short-term deal that doesn't include a cent for Ukraine nor for the U.S. border.
Right.
She looks like she's offended herself. A
Like,
cent for Ukraine. How dare you, sir?
We're back now with South Carolina.
I want to rewind it just so you can see what I mean again.
Republican Senator Lindsey Graham. Good to have you here in person, Senator. You just voted for a short-term deal that doesn't include a cent for Ukraine nor for the U.S. border.
Right.
How did you swallow that?
We had to keep the government open. We got 45 days to fix both problems. I listened to Kevin closely. There will come out of the Senate soon a bill that will have 3 legs to it. Disaster funding, we need more, not less. robust funding for Ukraine to get them through the next fighting season, not $24 billion, and a major effort to secure our border. I believe there's bipartisan support in the Senate to do both, and it will go to the House hopefully in the next 30 days.
What the speaker was talking about, though, was a bill, H.R. 2, regarding the border that Senate Democrats will never get on board
There
with.
will
So
be
what
a
are you talking about?
Right. So we got to fix asylum. We need border security agent increases. We need more detention beds.
So, Nick, do you think the Republicans like Matt Gaetz would take a deal where they get border security and give up Ukraine funding? Like, would that finally unmask them as not these sort of anti-war? Like, that would be the thing. Like, if they did say, hey, what if we give you so-and-so amount of money for your border? How much would it take for you to give up some Ukraine money? Do you get that feeling that there is something that they could take?
There was a segment on Warren Joe where they was talking about this openly, where they were saying Republicans, Kevin McCarthy should have a strategy where they tie border funding with Ukraine in order to force the Republicans to get on board with Ukraine, the far right people. And will it work? I would. My guess will say yes, it will work, because all the politicians at the end, they will fold to the military industrial complex. But what does that say about the direction of the Democratic Party, that they are openly cheering? They went from immigration activists under Donald Trump. They went from abolish ICE, talking about how inhumane Trump's border wall and build that wall, all that nonsense was. And now they're openly praising the idea of expanding the border industrial complex in order to fund a neocon Ronald Reagan-esque policy, as admitted from one of our clips before, right? That's the position of the Democratic Party. And that's why you have people like Bill Kristol, open neocons. Big shout out to Sabby Sabs, our sister.
What's up, Sab?
That's why you have people like Bill Kristol who say he's open and comfortable with the Democratic Party now, because the Democratic Party is not only the party of the border police state, because Biden fund ICE more, $6 billion more than Donald Trump. They are openly bragging about making deals on funding the border wall more, so they can wage more war. But anyway, we can let the clip continue.
I fast forward to the next question and let's listen.
The House.
Yeah.
And the idea that we got to move swiftly, right?
Right.
The White House told Republican leadership that they don't have enough funding for Ukraine to make it through 45 days, and the authorities they have are insufficient.
Yeah. Well,
so how much time are you talking about needing?
You know, I've been around.
Why did I didn't feel this feeling when we didn't get $15 minimum wage. Nobody was like, what's going on, guys? What, the parliamentarian, get her out of there. We got to get these guys 15. Nobody was doing that, but we're having such a emotional and excited conversation about getting money to non-Americans. I'm just trying to make it make sense. Go ahead.
This is the best example. This is right here the best example how our media, capitalist media, works. Who pays these people on the corporate news network cycles? Boeing, Raytheon, and arms dealers. They will have a commercial on their show regarding Boeing. They'll be like, sponsored by Boeing, sponsored by Raytheon. So I'm gonna ask you guys this question: is the average boomer, the 60-year-old, 70-year-old watching the show, are they buying missiles from Raytheon, CJ? Is the average person watching the show, are they buying weapons from the military industrial complex? No. So why are they doing it then? You guys know how targeted ads work, right? Whenever you're watching UFC, pro wrestling, football, something like that, you got more like masculine advertisements, right? You have like male deodorants, sports gear, all this, because they know what demographic is watching that show. When you have like soap opera, drama, reality TV, whatever young women watch these days, they will have like fashion commercials, for example. So why do they have sponsorships by weapons dealers on news networks? Who's buying shit from Boeing and Raytheon? It had nothing to do with that. Do you guys think that was about? You guys think people watching at home that think like, nigga, let's see what weapon manufacturer can I contact today? Thank God it's sponsored by Boeing and Raytheon. No, they literally buy these politicians. I don't know, the news anchors. So they are more aggressive when it comes to pushing war than the most unhinged neocons in Congress. like Lindsey Graham. Remember when Anthony Blinken was on one of the MSNBC shows, and they was grilling him like, "Why aren't you guys giving Ukraine more aid?" And Anthony Blinken was like, "Fucking flabbergasted, like, do you guys know what we have done? You guys criticizing me to my right? This is like the first time I've ever been criticized to my right. This is crazy." But as I said before, the United States is the most propagandized country in the world because our media is, I don't know how they do it, but they are actually more pro-war than the most pro-war person in Congress. But anyway, that's the point. Go ahead, CJ.
Well, and we dedicate a lot of time to Ukraine on this program, so we find it important. But I want to ask you, because Leader McConnell had gone into the lunch yesterday telling Senate leaders that he believed the White House when they said they were running out of funding for Ukraine. And then his deputies apparently urged him to drop it, which is how you ended up with this bill with nothing in it.
Well, she is so offended. She is so offended.
McConnell's been great in Ukraine, but he picked a formula to lose votes for Ukraine. To expect people like me and others to vote for Ukraine aid without border security is unreasonable. Mitch made a miscalculation. He's been great on Ukraine. I told him 1,000 times, the key to Ukraine funding is to deal with a broken border. 107,000 Americans have died from fentanyl poisoning, from fentanyl coming across the southern border. We haven't lost one soldier in Ukraine. So America is being invaded from a broken southern border. To my Democratic colleagues, you need to take border security seriously.
Yeah. Are you saying that Ukraine should not be a standalone?
$6 billion.
It will not.
I have been asking this from right wingers for months now. When they keep saying the border is open, what do you mean by that? You mean the guy who funds ICE, $6 billion more than Trump, funds border and customs to historic levels? Hey, right wingers, there is no capitalist answer to border security. No matter how much money you pour into the system, nothing will stop illegal immigration. The only thing that happens is increased human rights violations. Let's continue.
Yes, and we're going to close. Let's let him finish his answer, then we'll close this part. And if you have any receipts, I'll pass it to you.
Will not be a standalone. When I go to South Carolina.
So this is what you were, let me just say this part. This is what you were alluding to earlier. What he's saying is, because understand, he's in the Senate. The Senate's run by the Democrats. So he's saying, Mitch, what they did is mess up. Is if you think you're going to get people like me to vote for Ukraine, you got to include borders. So he's talking about Democrats accepting you have to do something about the border if you want Ukraine. Now, what Nick said earlier, you can't, Democrats, y'all been saying all this time how this border that, and how you're for immigration. Now you gonna make a deal in order for Ukraine, but you couldn't make a deal for $15 minimum wage. You couldn't make a deal for voting rights. You couldn't make a deal for anything else, but you'll make a deal on the border for Ukraine. That's essentially what we're being set up to have to buy. Because remember, there's an interview, and I'll bring this down just in case you have any receipts. There's an interview, and later it's a separate segment. These all could be kind of rolled together. Where we're going to talk about when we get to Bernie Sanders and AOC, but AOC sort of alludes to this. So I'll hold the critique for that segment. But Nick, did you have any other Ukraine sort of receipts you wanted to bring up here before I bring up the last one?
Yeah, this is another mini segment within the Ukraine segment,
for sure.
Because one of the reasons why people like Rand Paul are against Ukraine funding, he said this in his speech. You have Zelensky that is prosecuting and going after Orthodox churches. They are cracking down on the freedom of religion because a lot of these Orthodox churches they are ethnic Russians, and they are smeared by the Ukrainian government as being pro-Russian because, as I mentioned before, Ukraine is right next to Russia, and they have generational ties that go back centuries and centuries. And one of the reasons why people on the right are against funding Ukraine is because they're against freedom of religion. I think everyone should be. I think everyone should speak out against countries that crack down on that, even if you're on the left. But the anti-fascist argument against Ukraine, which literally the NATO left or weak on fascism now, is that we shouldn't support Ukraine because they ban opposition parties. they banned the right to collectively bargain. One of the first things Nazis did in Germany is ban collective bargaining rights. So Nazi countries do what Nazi countries do, right? So this is the receipt here. Ukraine bans religious organizations with link to Russia. And I cannot emphasize enough, when they say links to Russia, Ukraine are essentially following the direction of Banderite Nazi extremists in Western Ukraine, where anyone who is an ethnic Russian who favored diplomatic ties with Russia is labeled pro-Russian, links to Moscow, you know, all these scary terms, right? So Orthodox churches are big in Russia. We all know that, right? So of course, Orthodox churches right next to them who have historical ties, because remember, they used to be one country, the Soviet Union, for a very long time. So of course, these churches want to maintain ties with Orthodox churches in Russia. That makes sense. The same way they have ties with other neighbors, right? So the Ukrainian fascist government have been waging a crackdown on these religious organizations. Look, this is one example. Ukraine bans religious organizations with links to Russia, whatever that fucking means, right?
That's all they do. Just add Russian, and that's all they got to do. Just add the name Russian, and everybody just go, "Oh, that's that Russia derangement syndrome."
Yep. And guess who is helping the fascist government regime manufacture consent regarding their purge of ethnic Russians in their country? The Western media, CJ. This is from NPR. They're doing cover for the Ukrainian regime here. Listen, look at the headline. Anger grows over Ukraine's largest Orthodox church aligned with Moscow despite war. What the fuck are we living through right now? Remember when Maura Kimberly said, despite all her years, despite witnessing all these wars, right? She said she'd never seen pro-war propaganda like this. You have here NPR, Western media, who claims to care about freedom. They print this headline in order to manufacture support towards Ukraine's decision to crack down on the Orthodox churches. And I cannot emphasize enough that when they say align with Moscow, that is NPR repeating Ukrainian fascist propaganda. Links to Moscow means they are Russian. What is the political goal and objective of the Azov Battalion and Banderites in Ukraine that they are willing to get done using political violence, if necessary, waging war, cleansing their country of what they view as impure Caucasians? They view the Russian people as defiled white people who was conquered by the Mongols. They view them as Asianic white filth coming from Azov messaging. So the government, aligned with the Azov Banderite messaging, launches a war against these churches and freedom of religious groups. And now our Western media is attacking those groups now. Isn't that something? This is what Rand Paul was talking about. This is what even Ron DeSantis has been picking up in his talking points.
Yeah, they've been breaking.
We should never fund these people because they're cracking down on our religion. They are cracking down on Christians, right? And that's what Rand Paul said as well. So let's see if I can find that.
And so what? I mean, this is one of the questions I would love. Like when you said, I would love to talk to these NATO left. What do they have to say about this stuff like this? Like, what do they say about these crackdowns on democracy? How can you, that's why I want to hear them. And Nick, and the thing is, Nick, I went looking. So you know, I play these little intro videos in the beginning before we even get started. So I have to find a lot of video content. You know, I went to their page because we went to talk about Ukraine. There is nothing on Ukraine. All.
They just don't cover it.
It's stuff they're talking about. I'm like, where are these subjects from? I don't even know what these subjects are. They're just randomly coming up with their own things that have nothing to do with none of the current politics that's even happening. It's so bizarre that they're doing it, but it's so telling why they're doing that.
Absolutely, CJ.
But go ahead.
And
Go ahead.
and they refuse to address the issue. They're deeply unserious. They view themselves more credible than RBN, like the David Dole's Human Rights Report. Meanwhile, they talk about nothing but ridiculous red blue bullshit without ever covering Ukraine. We cover foreign policy. At least I cover foreign policy every damn stream. Every stream. It's the most important thing to cover in politics. There's nothing to talk about in terms of national politics other than foreign policy for the most part, right? But if you look at any of these people pages, if you go on David Pakman, Rational Natural, Human Support, to your point, they will go weeks and weeks without ever covering foreign policy, state violence, real issues that actually the government is responsible for. So we played this clip before. I was going to play this to wrap up my quick segment regarding Ukraine cracking down on freedom, religion, their fascist tendencies. Zelensky. We played this before, but I think it's go well with the segment.
Worse than that, Maria, they've canceled the elections. What kind of democracy has no election? So next year, Zelensky said he's not going to have an election because it would be inconvenient during the war and would be expensive. Well, the thing is, if you don't have elections, why in the world would we be supporting a country that's not a democracy? They've banned the political parties. They've invaded churches. They've arrested priests. So, no, it isn't a democracy. It's a corrupt regime. And are the Russians any better? No, the Russians are worse. But at the same time, we don't always have to pick some side to be on. But the ultimate reason I'm against this is we don't have the money. And when we borrow more money, it leads to more inflation, leads to more likelihood of recession in our country. And so we just can't keep doing it.
The funny thing is, he doesn't even use like a left anti-war argument, right?
No.
He doesn't say we shouldn't be there because we got to save Ukrainian lives. I'm against war. He said most importantly, I'm against it because we can't afford it. But also, by the way, Ukraine's fascist, by the way. I just think that's interesting. Like when you look at his objections, it's not even like inward, and it's why we're not fans of Rand Paul. It's not even on left principles. It just we shouldn't be spending money over there. We should be spending money and probably find China or some shit. You know what I mean? That's the general right-wing critique. That last thing, I'll pass to you, CJ.
I got one more part.
We still got the Bernie part coming up, but go ahead.
Yeah, and then I think after this video, I'm going to show you here. We can roll into Bernie and AOC. Bernie first, and then some AOC stuff I got. But I had to have shown you this. I don't think you've seen this, but this is kind of shocking too. This just goes to the establishment is freaking out, and Max Boot writes this article on Washington Post because we're ad blocked out or whatever is behind a paywall. Luckily, he came on CNN to talk about the article, but in not only talk about the article, but in the article he tries to answer some of the critiques about how it's corrupt, like some of to the point that Nick and I are making now, how they're corrupt, or that Rand Paul made. So let's listen to this here.
Today's gathering is happening just after the U.S. Congress passed a short-term spending bill that does not include $6 billion in aid, which the Senate requested for Ukraine. In the wake of that aid suspension, Ukraine's national security advisor is expressing alarm, telling CNN that America must choose between dark and light.
Dark and light. America must choose between dark and light. What movie are we watching with these descriptions? Like, this is getting to this is why I use the term, it's getting to like a Hunger Game level, because if you remember the movie Hunger Games, it's very like over the top with when they're doing like the little TV shows and stuff. It's very, very over the top. But let's continue with this guy and his this segment.
We need to see whether the United States is responsible for democracy in the world, whether it remains a country that supports democracy, or whether it is a country that will stand by and watch as authoritarian states seize more and more territory.
We're joined now by Max Boot. He's a columnist for the Washington Post and a senior fellow at the Council on Foreign Relations. Max, thanks so much for being with us this afternoon. I
know this is going to be a good one. Like
anyone
who follows anti-war shit know that Max Boot is one of the most unhinged pro-war journalists in the modern era. Like, he's up there with all of them. Like, anyway, let's continue. You guys see what I mean very soon. Like, Max Boot is a name that immediately comes to mind. Like, I read it's countless unhinged opinions from Iraq to Afghanistan to Ukraine to Yemen, everything this guy says is crazy. So of course CNN brings him on. Anyway, let's continue.
As the
He's actually
advocate.
talking about very soon.
It's like when they bring on John Bolton. It's like when they bring on, it's like, really? This is who you're bringing on? But let me read the title of his opinion piece since it's on the screen, because it says, Ukraine aid is a great investment. Don't let MAGA Republicans in it.
Yeah,
And
I saw this article, but I couldn't read it because of paywall, like you said earlier. So I'm glad they're doing this statement. Go ahead, CJ.
Yeah, but let's play it. Let's listen to what he says and how he describes it.
Post detailing Ukraine aid is a great investment. Don't let MAGA Republicans end it. You go into detail about why you say that would be a catastrophe. Let's step back. What do you think the basis is for the opposition to Ukraine aid among these Republicans?
I think there's a lot of isolationism among Republicans. I think there's also some affinity for Putin. I think a lot of this is being
isolationism and affinity for Putin. They never, Nick, these people, when we present arguments against the war, they don't have substantive arguments. They just go to the Looney Tune Hollywood argument. Putin, you're a Putin puppet. Like, no, engage me intellectually with the points. They don't never do that. And it's to this point here, he just says they just have some affinity and it's isolationist. That's it.
One of the short tail signs that you're dealing with a neocon psychopath is when they use the term isolationism. For one, that is a focus group tested term that neocons use to attack peace activists. They have done that for decades now. And the term is actually extremely misleading because no one's an isolationist. If we are advocating peace talks, that is not isolation. Advocate, and this is what neocons never understand. Well, they do, but they purposely lie about it, right? Advocating for peace is not being an isolationist. Advocating for diplomacy and friendly relationships between countries is not isolationism. So I think Vivek Ramaswamy has a fucking ridiculous solution to the Ukraine war, right? But one of the things he says is that we should have normal diplomatic relationship with Russia. Like his plan of pulling the no limits partnership of Russia and China is stupid. We all know that, right? But Vivek said he wants a friendly relationship with Russia because it benefits everyone. How is that isolationism? I'm struggling with that, you guys see. But how is that what they say? Right, CJ? But anyway, let's continue.
Yeah. Now, let me just bring this up because I was, if you didn't say that, I was just about to ask you, Nick, can you explain for the audience and me a little more about isolationism? Because I just vaguely know it because, again, I only even hear this when some of the most neoconish of the neocons are talking. So I only hear this word literally maybe five times out of the year. So I brought up the definition, but go ahead if you wanted to talk about it also. Go ahead.
I'll be real short because I already kind of mentioned it earlier, but historically, it came from people who wanted the United States to enter World War II because the United States had we don't get involved with European foreign policy for a very long time. That's why this new neocon approach that people think is the normal, that's only been a thing for less than 100 years. Like when you look at it, late 1800s, the early 1900s, the United States had a hands-off approach. We wanted to focus on building our countries and solving our diplomatic issues and also waging war against Mexico as well. Don't get twisted. Like we're going to focus on our region. Like, you know what I mean? Let's focus on terrorizing our region. Let's focus on genocide the Native Americans. Let's focus on implementing the Black codes. We don't have time to worry about Europe. So when people was advocating for us to enter World War II, they criticized people who spoke out against that as isolationists, right? Isolationists. You guys have to struggle with that. Isolationists. So they smear people as isolationists, right? And that was very successful. The United States got in World War II, and there was a lot of public support for that. So seeing the success of that smear, they continue calling people who was critical of the Korean War and the Vietnam War as isolationists. They said, oh, didn't we as the United States learn the lesson from the rise of Nazi Germany, the rise of the Soviet Union? When the United States don't engage with the world, the world is less safe. So we got to speak out against isolationism. They took that and they expanded that to now the new neocon version, where anyone who speaks out against war in general, you advocate for isolationism. It's it's a term that you see high-level propagandists use because they study history. They studied how to be a pro-war propagandist, and they learn from propagandists of the past. So that's when you see that CNN clip, you're dealing with masterful propaganda, and that's why I always think when I see someone using that term. But anyway, Mrs. said Nick, it was even more rapid during World War II. I'm interested in comments as well because I'm always interested in hearing more perspective on history. Nick, it was even more rapid during World War I. Yeah, that's fair. That's true as well. That is absolutely true. They use that term in World War I. Absolutely. Thank you for the comment. But CJ, I'll pass back to you. But
let's finish this up here.
Driven by Donald Trump. There are a lot of Republicans who know better, including Mitch McConnell, who said this is not the time to go wobbly. And it's pretty obvious that there are bipartisan majorities in both chambers of Congress to continue funding aid to Ukraine. But we need to overcome the obstructionism of a small number of House Republicans.
So Max,
obstructionism? You mean democracy?
From these MAGA Republicans?
You guys see the anti-democracy tendencies of these fascist authoritarians like Max Boot? So having a conversation and debate on whether we should spend money on war is obstructionism. That is obstructionism only to someone who is deeply anti-democratic. If you truly believe what you're doing is just in Ukraine, you will stand up and have this debate with the anti-Ukraine caucus, right? You will be relishing the exchange of ideas. They don't, because fascist authoritarians know they're in the wrong, so they abhor democracy. What you hear from Matt Boot here is someone who abhors the idea of democracy. But let's continue.
Republicans in the op-ed, specifically that those funds should be used for domestic priorities.
Let me rewind it because the beginning of the sentence was cut off, and this is an important question because this is essentially what I've heard Jimmy Dore say. We've said it too, like spending money somewhere else when we can use it here. What do you say to those people? So I'm interested in seeing what Max says to those people.
There's corruption in Ukraine, that some of that money is being diverted away from the war. Those arguments, though, appear to be resonating with some 60% of Americans, according to recent polling. Why do you think that is?
Well, they are resonating, but I think they're just very bad arguments. I mean, I think they're resonating because they play into the isolationism of a lot of the Republican base, but they're horrible arguments because the reality is that U.S. aid to Ukraine has been one of the most successful, if not the most successful, foreign policy initiatives the United States has undertaken since the end of the Cold War for a relatively small investment. Yes, we are spending tens of billions of dollars on Ukraine, but all of that amounts to roughly 0.5% of federal spending. So for a very small investment, a very tiny portion of defense spending in particular, we are helping a free people of Ukraine to resist aggression, this evil aggressor that has invaded their country. And in the process, we're helping them to devastate the Russian war machine. They are
lying about
the kind of losses that Russia has not seen since World War II, and that is degrading dramatically one of the most anti-American
if they are so successful
countries in the world that we are.
Real quick, if they are so successful in degrading the Russian military and Ukraine being successful, why are you guys stoking fears that Russia is about to invade Europe with no evidence?
Right.
If Russia is so weak they can't defeat Ukraine, how are they a threat to Europe and the United States, like you guys keep saying? But let's continue. I just want to point out that quick contradiction.
Oops, I thought I hit the play button. There we go now.
We ourselves face. So the Ukrainians are fighting our battle for us, and we don't have to risk a single American soldier. It's a tremendous investment, and it would be the height of folly to cut them off.
Do you have hope, Max, that there will be Ukraine aid in this next phase of negotiating, potentially before that sort of 45-day CR, the continuing resolution, wraps and we face another potential government shutdown?
I do have hope because at the end of the day, roughly 2/3 of each house supports Ukraine aid. Now, it's very ominous to see that there are now more House Republicans opposed to aid than in favor of it. But in the bigger picture, it's still about 2/3 of each house supports Ukraine. And there's not a lot of issues you can point to that have 2/3 support. So, you know, Kevin McCarthy needs to do the right thing, put a bill on the floor right away, get the aid money flowing, because the Ukrainians are fighting for their lives, and they are fighting not just for their own security, but for our security as well.
And let me insert here, and I can close this. He says more other stuff that we can all talk about, but I do want to kind of move on because
let me
the
add this real quick.
argument. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, but one thing I want to say real quick. Another propaganda tactic he's doing, because he know he's presenting to a liberal audience. You notice how he mentioned how the majority people who are against Ukraine are MAGA Republicans. That's the talking point that he's using, right? Because he wants liberals to reflectively support Ukraine. So he said, well, there's MAGA Republicans who have a pro-Putin tendency. I showed you guys a poll before that had where it showed only 60% of Democrats support Ukraine funding, which is a lot, but there was like 25% that was opposed, and that's 1 out of 4, which is good considering Democrats are usually brainwashed. 1 out of 4 is a lot. That's the same thing I say regarding Medicare for all. Like polls show that 1 out of 4 Republicans support Medicare for all. But if you listen to the corporate media, you would think that number is 1 out of 10, 1 out of 20. So I take 1 out of 4 Republicans being for Medicare for all. There's a poll that I covered that showed 30% of people who call themselves very conservative support defunding the police.
Yeah, I'll take that.
That's 1 out of 3. 1 out of 3 Republicans who are ultra conservative support defunding the police. How is that a bad poll? That's fantastic for us, fam. So he says that. And he also implies that only MAGA Republicans are against Ukraine. And in fact, I've seen the NATO left repeat this talking point. Like, oh, where are you? A Matt Gaetz far right winger if you're against Ukraine funding? 55% of independents oppose additional Ukraine funding. So doesn't that just destroy the entire argument that there's somehow some MAGA Republican led charge? Now that's true among the ruling class because there's a uniparty, but the idea that only far right fascists or far right people in the United States are against Ukraine is ridiculous. But I'll pass it back to you, CJ.
Yeah. So one of my final points, not the last, but one of my final points is that in that last part, what he was saying, this is what has been going on a lot of liberal segments today about this. Kevin McCarthy, you just put the bill on the floor. Kevin McCarthy is choosing his career. This is the phrasing they're using. Kevin McCarthy is choosing his career over. They want Kevin McCarthy to lie down on the sword of Ukraine, basically give up his job, his position, if he did, because by putting a bill up that he knows doesn't get the majority of the majority, meaning the majority of GOP. The way that Ukraine funding is going to get passed is if the majority of people voting for it is the Democrats, because that's what it's going to take. And if he does that, that's the what's that called? The Hester rule, the rule where you're not supposed to do that. So somebody made that up a long time ago, and they're going to get that guy out of here. And that's why they're saying he's not going to do it, because he simply has to put the bill up. The Democrats will get it passed. Think about that, Nick. The Democrats are gonna get it past the line.
Yeah.
This is where we are in 2023. And let me tell you, and I believe part of the reason we're even here, if the squad had forced the vote when they supposed to, we would not be here. We would not be here because all of this antagonism that we're seeing Matt Gaetz and the Freedom Squad doing, that should all be coming from the squad. The AOC should have been the one that was out on the Capitol Hill steps today after having a speech about Nancy Pelosi on the floor, coming out saying, I'm about to put a motion to vacate Nancy Pelosi the fuck out of here. She said she was going to put defund the police bill on the floor. She said she's going to put Medicare for all on the floor. She ain't did shit. Vacate this mother. That's what they should be doing.
Yeah.
That's exactly what they should be doing. Go ahead.
I would be embarrassed if I was an anti-forced to vote advocate. And that shit was on record. Like you're on record speaking out against anti-forced to vote, and you are not shamed. Every argument that they presented was utterly destroyed. Utterly destroyed, because the argument that we made is, why wouldn't you force a debate around healthcare in the middle of a pandemic? CJ, what the fuck is the only thing the media is talking about right now? The only thing they're talking about is the Matt Gaetz, Kevin McCarthy drama, because that shit is good media. Can you imagine the alternative reality we will be in right now if AOC was Nancy Pelosi and Hakeem Jeffries, Matt Gaetz? I think AOC, because one of the argument that anti-force vote people made, this will destroy their careers. They will be the end of them because they're challenging one of the most unpopular politicians in the modern era. How does that make? So Nancy Pelosi, one of the most unpopular politicians ever imposed, is somehow going to come ahead of a group of politicians fighting for a very popular policy, Medicare for all. How? And this is what the argument that we was making for Force to Vote. How can anyone see the negatives of this? Best case scenario, we force a debate on Medicare for all. Then people are like, why are you trying to force Nancy Pelosi out of your seat? Then that starts a debate about why we are against Nancy Pelosi because she's corrupt. Then you forced to talk about her inside trading. You forced to talk about her pro-war policies. You know, everything they talk about in the media, they're like, why is Matt Gaetz doing this? Every statement, CJ, I know you've seen them because you do as much homework as I do. Every statement is like, why is Matt Gaetz doing this to Kevin McCarthy? Wouldn't it be great if we have segment after segment of us being able to explain to people why we resist Nancy Pelosi? This was Force to Vote was such a win for so many reasons. And I love that we've seen what happened with Matt Gaetz and Kevin McCarthy because it shows it. Matt Gaetz is demanding the media talk about his agenda. Everyone is talking about the MAGA agenda, the Matt Gaetz agenda. Everyone talking about what he wants. He's the most talked about politician in the world right now. Imagine
they say he's hated too.
Yeah, imagine if we had.
And they say he's hated. No, go ahead. You finish it now.
I was about to say, imagine we had left fighters that were forcing popular conversations on Medicare for all, ending war, ending our police state, using the speakership in the political theater of forcing a House Speaker out as a tool to drive the conversation. It would destroy not only Nancy Pelosi, but the entire neoliberal wing of the Democratic Party, because then they'll come out outraged. They'll be like, how dare AOC force us to vote on health care? They'll be like, wait, you against that?
Yeah.
You're against the critiques waged against Nancy Pelosi. Now, once again, the liberal media won't present that way, but it's about winning the public perception. You have liberal journalists and liberal propagandists that will be made a fool of by this hypothetical Justice Democrat movement. The Justice Democrat, if they did this, would be massively popular. Like, once again, we talking about alternative reality. I know this sounds goofy, right? But imagine Ilhan Omar on Anderson Cooper just spitting fire the same way I've been seeing Matt Gaetz. Like, he like defiantly, he go on like corporate media channel, like, hell yeah, I'm against Ukraine. Hey, what the fuck you talking about? Hell yeah, I'm against the border war. What the fuck you talking? He's defiant. And if you go on Twitter, they love the fucking guy. The right-wing people, they love the fucking guy. Imagine how popular AOC would be and Ilhan Omar would be if they taking shit by the corporate media. Even like right-wingers who hate AOC and Ilhan, they will see the liberal media going after him for speaking up against Nancy Pelosi. They be like, nigga, I don't like AOC, but she's standing up against Nancy Pelosi. So
yep, and they were trying to get light. I promise you guys, there's so many effects like that will happen that will lead AOC and Ilhan and the squad being extremely popular in this alternative reality. But what is the reality that we're in? We're in the reality where they vote for Hakeem Jeffries and Nancy Pelosi, and now AOC approval rating. And I am not showing you guys. I'll show you guys every still on this multiple times. Is lower than Hillary Clinton and Kamala Harris. You guys know how A1 makes fun of Kamala Harris and how unpopular she is? AOC is more unpopular than her because she voted for Nancy Pelosi and King Jeffries. So the people who believe that AOC's career will be destroyed if she forced to vote, her career will destroy in terms of public perception, so much so she had to openly sell out because she didn't force the vote. So once again, for this and many reasons, if I came out openly against Force to Vote, I would be embarrassed because we've seen in real time every argument that they made against it was proven wrong. Yeah, and we can end this segment, at least the part that I want to. Yeah, we can end this segment and move on to Bernie with this 30-second video, because imagine if this was AOC saying this, and I said this yesterday in a little stream I did yesterday. Matt Gaetz is the type of guy that I would be politically, because I've heard people say, reporters, oh, he's hated on Capitol Hill. That shit would not affect me in a bit at all. Oh, they hate me? Oh, those 400 niggas over there hate me? Okay. Like I wouldn't care whatsoever. And I'm the type like him. I'm gonna go out there. I'll stand in the ocean by myself with my opinions if I feel I'm not being, just overzealous. But like I feel like no, these are points, and I'm standing on it. I don't mind that, and I love that about him. I don't love his policy, but this is the militancy we need to see from the left.
Yes,
this is the militancy we need to see. But I love the fact that he refers to it as a uniparty in this clip right here.
Yep.
This is let me just play this.
Are you worried about throwing this institution into chaos, paralyzing an institution that your party runs?
You know what I think paralyzes us? Continuing to govern by continuing resolution and omnibus. You know what I think throws this institution into chaos? Marching us toward the dollar not being the global reserve currency anymore. You talk about chaos as if it's me forcing a few votes and filing a few motions. Real chaos is when the American people have to go through the austerity that is coming if we continue to have $2 trillion annual deficits. You don't know chaos until you've seen where this Congress and this uniparty is bringing us. Chaos is...
That is the verbatim should have been said by anybody on the left. Anyone. Please, go ahead, Nick.
CJ, he just dismantled that motherfucker's talking points. Just like that. And like you said, that exactly should be the talking points of AOC when asked about why they calling chaos in the House when voting for Nancy Pelosi. They should be militantly this. So Gaetz has, like, especially economic issues, his class issues, his Western exceptionalism is unacceptable, right? But this model of politician is exactly what we need to see from the left. Someone unapologetically fighting for his constituency. I'm gonna see if I can find this tweet here soon, where because this is breaking not too long ago, where Matt Gaetz filed the notion to vacate for Kevin McCarthy. So we may gotta do that breaking news segment where, because I saw this while we were doing, I saw this right before we went on stream. Kevin McCarthy tweeted, "Come bring it," in response to the breaking news. So then Matt Gaetz quote tweeted him, said, "Yes, I did." And Kevin McCarthy is getting ratio to oblivion. And Matt Gaetz he's been shot. I just did a quick scan, CJ. He is an absolute fucking hero of
that would be AOC.
Of the right wing.
A legend, a walking legend. I'm not saying AOC. I'm saying AOC would be a walking legend.
Yeah.
Like instant credibility on the left. Like, wow, no, she taking that shit to the mat, like this guy is doing. And he said it in many interviews. I don't care if this is it for me. This is it. But I'm going to that right here. This is it. I'm laying down because he said. Because what I love about this part too, you can take it down if you want. He says austerity is coming, people. And he's saying it from a different perspective, but it is the same reason. The dollar is de-dollarizing. That means austerity's coming. Oil backing the dollar is over. This artificial propping up of the dollar is over, and it's going to be almost overnight when it hits the fan, Nick. And he's saying this shit needs to get under control. Now, I have a different solution. MMT is a whole lot of, Marxist perspective, a whole lot of different. He's saying as far as getting the uncontrolled spending, if you have a different solution, but at least he's talking about this being a uniparty problem. And that is key for people to understand. These two parties are not working against each other. Don't show me that. Go ahead, man. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. So this is like a breaking news segment because if you haven't seen it, this is broken like 20 minutes before we went live. Matt Gaetz officially filed a motion to vacate. And fam, Kevin McCarthy is getting fucking obliterated by right wingers right now. Like these are look at this ratio, fam. Jesus Christ. 8,000 plus comments, only 5,000 likes. That is what we call an epic fucking ratio. Fam. And look at this. We're coming. Look, bro, he is getting destroyed, fam. Look, I look forward to seeing your removal with that attitude. But bro, this is horrible for Kevin McCarthy, fam. Now look at this. Now once again, I think the Republicans will back him at the end of the day. But look, the Republicans and Matt Gaetz, the populist right, they are roasting him because he needed Democrats to support his plans. Look at this. The voters are done with you. So he's getting destroyed. And this is this is Matt Gaetz's response. I had to go back a little bit here. Here it is. 1 second. Kevin McCarthy said, "Bring it on." Just did. This motherfucker almost tripled his likes immediately. CJ immediately almost tripled his likes. And we talking about we looking at right wing Twitter because we want to see their perspective, right? So according to the right, Matt Gaetz is a fucking legend who is challenging the Republican establishment. Imagine the alternative reality that we wish we lived in, where Nancy Pelosi like, AOC, bring it on, and then she get like 5,000 likes, and then AOC like, we just did, and then she get like 100,000 likes. This tweet is gonna get 100,000 likes by the end of the night.
Yeah,
AOC will be the legend that Matt Gaetz has been on the right. Which look at this ratio: 21,000 likes compared to Kevin McCarthy's bot boosted 5,000.
And think about how that inspires people to participate. Think about how that inspires people to participate, though. That fight that Matt is giving, the people that believe in the things he believes in, they're going to be like, yeah, let's go. Like, you're pumping people up. You would be pumping people up. Nick would be like, yeah, I never thought I would go out canvassing again, but I'm about to do this shit. Like, because it would just lift everybody's sort of engagement level to see something fight. Go ahead.
No, CJ, I'm sorry to interrupt, but to your point, that's literally the entire comment section of Matt Gaetz's tweet. I'm sure there are a lot of liberals melting down at it, 3,000 replies here. But look, a ton of right wingers. I'm with Matt Gaetz, 1,000 plus. Like even if he get voted out, even if he get forced out of Congress, like there talks like they wouldn't do. He's set, fam. Like he's gonna make a right wing podcast. He's gonna go on Rumble, and this motherfucker gonna be a millionaire overnight. Well, he already is, but he's gonna make millions and millions of dollars on whatever the fuck he does if he leaves Congress, because this motherfucker became a legend overnight on the right simply for challenging the Republican establishment. I don't know, the same thing that RBN, Forced to Vote Left, Jimmy Dore, and many other people were asking of AOC. AOC will be a beloved legend. Instead, people think that we love doing anti-Bernie, anti-AOC segments. You know how hype it would be. We'd be like, nigga, you see what AOC said about Ukraine? You see, he called out Team Jeffries again. Nigga, those segments would be way funner. Right?
Yeah.
We can't.
I would love to come on here with 2,000 people hyped up because AOC just torched Pelosi. I would love to be on here with Nick smoking a cigar, like, hey, nigga, this shit about to go down. Like, I would love to be that, but we gonna report what we gonna report, whatever we see. But go ahead with this one.
So this last thing, because this is a breaking news segment. Because this is like everywhere. I saw this a little bit earlier. Browsing, looking for receipts as well. So I'll play the video. This is Matt Gaetz, another tweet where he's gonna have easily 50,000, 100,000 likes. Like this, he's trending all over Twitter right now. Well, again, he's not in our political camp, right? But when you look at the people he's firing up in his political camp, he's been an effective right-wing legislator. The criticism I always had of the professional managerial left is they're ineffective leaders. Even if you disagree with Matt Gaetz's policy, he's doing exactly what a leader should be doing to advocate his interest. Anyway, let me play the video. I think I've said enough about it.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Florida now seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Clause 2A1 of Rule 9, I rise to give notice of my intent to raise a question of the privileges of the House.
The gentleman will state the form of his resolution.
Declaring the office of Speaker of the House of Representatives to be vacant. Resolved that the office of Speaker of the House of Representatives is hereby declared to be vacant.
So, fam,
For what purpose does the gentleman from
one of the reasons why Kevin McCarthy said bring it, I know it's because I saw a Morning Joe segment. They was talking about
he has the votes. He's not going nowhere. Go ahead.
And I want to be clear, Kevin McCarthy is not going anywhere. The Republican establishment is happy that he betrayed his promises to his populist right base. And at the end of the day, Kevin McCarthy is a loyal MAGA-like establishment creature.
Yes.
So he's beloved by the Republicans. And there's even conversations among Democrats that they want to reward Kevin McCarthy for preventing a government shutdown and working with Democrats. So there's rumors that corporate purple state Democrats are going to prevent Kevin McCarthy from being ousted. And that gave AOC the opportunity to be like, hey, I oppose this. I'm going to vote against Kevin McCarthy. That's her version of leftism, right?
Yeah.
And the more sassy version of the red-blue game, right? But that's how bad it is now, where Democrats are backing him because they want him to support Ukraine funding. They rather have this caucus as against the populists, right? And Kevin McCarthy could be saved by Democrats, but if he is, you guys know how fucking ham Matt Gaetz is gonna go, and he already doing it. You already seen the meme with the Kevin Pelosi meme. The right is going to say that Kevin McCarthy teamed up with Democrats to shut down the MAGA agenda. So Kevin McCarthy is going to have a ton of support from the establishment, but there are torches for this motherfucker among the on the ground activist Republican MAGA base. And that will be the same scenario if AOC forced to vote. Bernie Sanders and them, or well, not Bernie Sanders, he's a Senate, but AOC, Ilhan Omar, Pramila Jayapal, if they forced to vote, they will be hated by the establishment. They will have relational harm, the thing AOC wanted to prevent, but they will be beloved. If the right wingers that speak out against AOC, they will look dumb if they try to speak out against AOC if she was fighting against Nancy Pelosi. They don't, because we know she's a traitor, right? But any criticism of them will be muted because they find the Democratic establishment at the end of the day. And I promise you guys, these Republican people, the partisans, they wouldn't even hate AOC like that because they would see AOC fighting Pelosi. That's all the fuck they would see. I don't think I made my point. That's our breaking news segment. It wasn't really planned, but that's what everyone was expecting today. Everyone's freaking out about it. I can't wait. The Morning Joe segment on this tomorrow is going to be fucking.
I'm going to wake up with some popcorn. I'm going to have some popcorn already set.
It's going to be glorious.
For that one.
We still got a brain segment.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is what we're going to, if you have the time, this is what I'm going to try to do. We probably got another maybe 45 minutes to an hour. I want to try to fit in 3 or 4 very short, like 10-minute segments. And then we can get out of here. Yeah. And it's just the graphic stuff that we hadn't gotten to. Of course, the Jamaal Bowman.
Go ahead.
Yeah, the Jamaal Bowman pulling the fire alarm. That's going to be a quick segment. That's one. Then we got AOC, the establishment. We got Bernie Sanders' tweet. That'll be a quick one. And I do want to just address.
Yeah, and we can. Let's try to keep this around. If it's not a big deal, but let's try. If we can keep these 15 minutes, I think we can cover maybe 3 segments.
Yeah. I think it might be less than that, but let's do that. And
but
then
we go with the flow. But 15 minutes would be great. But go ahead, CJ.
Yeah, but let me just do a couple of announcements, and then
I'll be right back.
We can get started. Yeah, I'll do a couple of announcements, and then we'll get started. So if you go to our website, and I'll put our website down at the bottom, and if you go to our website, though, when you click on it and go to the URL, you click RBN merchandise, and this is what you'll get. Our website, RBN merchandise on Bonfire. We have 11 designs. Those 11 designs you can get on mugs, or you can get on tote bags, or you can get on shirts, sweatshirts, and I'll read some of them. You got Blow Blue, No Matter Who is for Morons. It got U.S. does imperialism best on that one. You got voting for lesser of two evils is how we got here. You got Democrats and Republicans could kiss my ass. So there's a lot of different designs. There's a NATO one. And then, of course, the regular one with our logo. When you click on the item, it blows it up. You can scroll over if you want to get a close-up of the design of whatever that design is. You can also check out the other colors you can get it in. So this is the one I like. I probably will get the green one. I haven't got it yet, but people have been emailing us. Hey, I got the merchandise. We're eventually going to have people kind of maybe do like a little tweet storm where people are tweeting their merchandise, a picture of themselves in the RBN merch. So I just wanted to shout that out before we get to this next one. Now let me read a couple of super chats before we get to it. We only have 5. Here's the first one. Brand new member. I think that says Middle MAGA. Brand new member. Welcome to the RBN community.
I actually know
on
that guy from
YouTube.
Twitter. I know that
Okay.
guy from Twitter actually. Big shout out to
Okay.
There's a lot of people from the right that follow me because they fuck with my like there's people on the right that they just despise liberalism. Like and there's this guy. And remember the guy I had from
I'll
the
put him
grades.
back
I
up
didn't even
here.
know this before I had Liam on. I didn't know this before I had him on. I just follow his foreign policy takes. He's a libertarian. I didn't know. He literally said, "I'm gonna show you. I'm more libertarian minded." I was like, "All right, cool." I didn't know that. I just assumed he was left. He was like, "I'm a libertarian, but I would vote for a socialist any day if they anti-war." And he like, I value our politics. And there are a lot of people like this guy. I just know this guy from Twitter. He's more libertarian, right? And they are open with having this coalition with anyone who resists the neocon, neoliberal, uniparty agenda. And we're going to fight on economics, and we do. And I fight with these people. But when I talk to ordinary, like, right-wing people, when I talk about healthcare, increasing the power of the working class, they like, shit, I'm all for that. Now, we're going to fight about how we get there, but I want people to reject the TYT Justice Democrat DSA sponsored talking point that you shouldn't organize or work with anyone, and it's not possible to work with anyone who considers himself a right winger. I don't think that's true. I don't purposely try to appeal to Trump people. I've told you guys that multiple times. I don't want to win over Trump people. I don't want to win over Biden people. I want to win over people that are pretty much almost done with that shit. And if you're either a Democrat or Republican, and then you start to vibe with us, that's a good thing, right? Anyway, just shout out to
Yeah, so just to kind of piggyback on that, the last time we took a poll, maybe we'll do another one since we've probably gained at least 10,000
I want to do another
subscribers.
one.
We'll do another one. Yeah, we've gained at least 10,000 more subscribers, but the last time we did it, it was very even. Like it was around a third, 27 to 32%. That's the number I remember. Whereas that's our audience. They identify as conservative, and how I take that is that when your message is truly worker, that's why you appeal across. That's why you can appeal to different people. That's why people will go, oh yeah, I'm an anarchist. Oh yeah, I'm a Trumper, but I'm here. Or I'm a libertarian, I'm here. I got anarchists and I got libertarians in the same place. That means my message transcends these sort of political ideologies.
Absolutely, CJ.
That's a good thing. That is good thing. Go ahead.
The Matt Dust, especially like the Emma Vigeland and Sam Cedar, left. They almost take pride in how unpopular the politics is. like, we only have one niche audience and crowd. Now, I take pride in the fact that I have people who consider themselves Marxist-Leninists. I have Maoists. I have Juice ideology, far left communists who subscribe to me, who follow me, right? Then I also have people like Mel MAGA and libertarians who follow me. That's a fantastic and beautiful thing. And then people like the Vanguard who are coping because their channel haven't grown in a year because Aaron Mate killed it. They would criticize us for that. Like they would say stuff like, RBN got right-wing audience. RBN cultivating right-wing, even though that's not true because it's only like 30% or so. But they view that as a bad thing. Mm-hmm. How dare you bring people who otherwise ideologically different together for a common goal? Like they view that as a bad thing, which show why the state of the left is such in the position that it is now. They view coalition building. They view getting people who are culturally different than them on their board with them. They view that as a bad thing, fam. What does that say about their politics? I think it's a fantastic thing, and I'm very open because I'm very open about like my politics, right? And it's weird when people say I try to appeal to right wingers, and I'm open socialist and communist because there'd be like right wingers who follow me. I see them say this shit all the time. Nah, man, I really like with nigga. I just wish he dropped the socialist shit, man. Like, nope. Gotta deal with all of it, fam. But that's another important thing of what we are doing and why I even got you to in the first place. Normalize Black radical communist thought. So how many right wingers was terrified as fuck of us in 2020? Right wing Antifa, socialists, thugs. Now those same people. I was at the George Floyd protest. Those thugs they talk about was me. I was tear gassed by the police, right? So people who otherwise fear the black radical communists, they are in shambles, CJ, because they're like, why the fuck am I agreeing with this person Sean Hannity told me was evil? He's a black socialist communist. Why am I agreeing with him so much? So what we are doing, we are normalizing our radical thoughts and showing people that we have rational opinions. We have rational opinions that most people will vibe to, right? And I think that's a very important task. I'll pass to you, CJ, because
Here's the another new member. I think that's Desi. I think that's how you said it. Brand new member. Also, thank you for joining, being a part of our YouTube community. And this one, Matt Miller says, small investment, huh? Why don't we substantially invest in our own country if things are going so well in other small investments around the world? That's a good question, Matt. Thank you for the super chat. This one here from Sam. What does that say? It says, if it's such a low amount of money, so why can't they give it to us? That is always a question I always have too.
Oh, that's such a great. I need to start you saying that because they will say, "Oh man, come on, you guys don't know Ukraine government support is only 3% of our military budget." So shouldn't that argument apply to homelessness? Like we could end homelessness with literally like 6 or 5 times over, maybe 7 times over with the amount of Ukraine funding that we send. That's a fantastic super chat earlier. Great comment. I'm gonna start using that. Because if it's if the amount we send is so low, why not fix our social problems that cost the same amount? Great comment, Sam. But let's continue.
And here is that Amir. Thank you for the 199. Please have Jamaal on the show. I'm not against Jamaal. I would like. I mean, I of the people on the left, I know the least about him, but I have watched his content. He seems good. The issues that I have seen him on, completely agree with him, so I wouldn't be opposed to that. Biden 71, thank you for the super sticker. Always showing love to all the. We got a new one, or is this just saved that you saved for me to read here? Here goes this.
Oh yeah, I just put that there.
Okay,
and this is responsible. I was saying earlier, they stopped saying 3% of the military budget to keep people from asking how much we spending on the military, and I did notice that as well because that wasn't as polished as the talking point as they thought it was. Like they do focus test groups and shit like that. At first they started saying, "You guys know it's only 3% of our military budget." They stopped saying it to their point because people, the rational response to that is like, "What? What? How much are we spending on our military?" So fantastic comment, and that's absolutely true. I observed the same thing as this person did. But go ahead, CJ. Let's continue.
Yeah, I do want to get to Bernie Sanders, the warmonger, because this is probably going to be a lot less than 15 minutes. I feel. I do want to start with with your tweet. Now, I do have Jimmy's comment. I do have Misty's comment, but I do want to start with yours. So I'll bring it up here. Here it goes.
Yeah. So remember what I told you guys when things going to get really funny? When things really heats up, we go on the Ukrainian debate, the election, and the NATO left that was given strict instruction not to speak about the NATO proxy war when they are forced to chime in. When debate around this issue becomes so hot because Republicans are resisting Ukraine funding, once the election really begins, when Joe Biden and Trump go after, or whoever the nominee on the Democrat side go after Donald Trump, then you're going to have Bernie Sanders and Biden endorsees have to fight against right-wing criticism of Biden's pro-war foreign policy, which is going to be interesting. We started seeing it now. Now, this is what Bernie Sanders said. I read it because of my tweet. Bernie says, I look forward to seeing Congress provide in the very near future financial support for Ukraine, which is violently struggling against Russian aggression. Now, scroll up if you can, CJ. Because go to Bernie's tweet and scroll up. Because that's actually, if I remember right, the second
one. That's the second
one. Now, this is a observation I made on Twitter that I want to share with you guys on the show because I found something. I hope I can find his tweet. Look at Bernie's first tweet. Why did Bernie's first tweet got so many less likes than the second one? The second one has 17,000 likes compared to the 4,000. You want to know why? Because this is why Bernie Sanders was told not to talk about this. There's 3,000 replies. Everyone on anti-imperialist Twitter is toasting Bernie Sanders right now. And NAFO accounts was telling each other to go to Bernie Sanders' tweet and help prop it up because he's fighting our fight, the Ukrainian fight. So what does that mean? Bernie Sanders' tweets are being propped up by NAFO. You know, the intelligent troll farm? I know that because I followed the tweet from them early in the beginning, and it was like, holy shit, no, Bernie's getting ratioed. We got to come save him. So what does that say? That neocons are so comfortable that they got neocon bot for it. And I'm going to see if I can search this tweet. I didn't save it. I brought it up out of nowhere here. Where NAFO accounts was like, hey guys, help Bernie, help Bernie. Bernie is spreading pro-war propaganda. Help boost his tweet.
What?
Let me see if I can find it. I didn't plan to say this during the segment, but I want to show you this because it blows your mind.
Now, as you look for that, let me pull up what I said because I thought it was weird too that and let me just say this. Nick and I haven't talked about this ahead of time. I had no idea you was just about to say that before I showed my tweet. I was thinking the same thing. Like I was like, this is weird. Why I've never seen a second tweet get so vastly more. It's usually the other way around. And this is my tweet about the same thing. I say at this point, Bernie is just a disgusting piece of raw, unfiltered garbage. This tweet is completely unneeded, just pandering to the establishment. Notice how Twitter amplifies this tweet over the first tweet in the thread. So I had noticed the same thing. Go ahead, Nick.
No, this is it. I found it.
Go ahead.
Because if you're on Twitter, I know a lot of people on YouTube are not. When you make Twitter threads, usually your first tweet will get substantially more likes than your following tweets because most people see the first tweets, right? But Bernie's second tweet got literally 4 times more likes than the original tweet. This is why. This guy is a NAFO account. We've covered this many times before. NAFO is the intelligence agency sponsored troll farm that was actually started by a Nazi. Like, search our library. I did a long statement on this.
Yeah,
it was one of my favorite stories from last year when NAFO founder was caught being a Nazi. There's government leaders that propped him up. This is no doubt an intelligence front, right? Now, this is what NAFO's saying. Look, hey, NAFO, Bernie could use some support on this thread as a lot of tankies and communists follow him, even though he's neither of those things. Please give him a boost in a comment. How far has he fallen, Bernie Sanders? Well, Bernie Sanders is getting lit up so bad, CJ. So those likes by Bernie mean nothing. Those are 90% body because you look at the tweet, and I'll show you, and you're gonna show some responses now. He's getting toasted by everybody after this tweet. Yes. And remember what I said, CJ? This is why they was told not to speak about it. You're supposed to be the baby face. If you guys know wrestling, you're the baby face. You're the good guy, Bernie. We can't get you getting your hands dirty with this shit right here. This shit will make you look bad. That's why they told these motherfuckers not to talk about it. Bernie was asked about Ukraine. Was it like State of the Union, Meet the Press, one of those fucking shows?
Yeah.
And he was like, I don't know anything about that. I don't know anything about that. I haven't looked into it. Nigga, you are a liar. You're a senator voting on this. You told me you never Googled Ukraine. Get the fuck out of here. He told you guys that because he knew what the response would be if he came out openly as pro-war piece of shit garbage as he is here. Right?
I think that's why he put the Ukraine support, Nick. That's why he put the Ukraine support in the second tweet. Yeah. Because in the first tweet is the normal Bernie Sanders virtue signaling. He thought, oh, this is it. Nobody's really gonna see the second tweet down here. He didn't understand NAFO was about to come in and blow that shit up. But go ahead, Nick.
And Ukraine Twitter was desperate to get Bernie Sanders support where he's getting destroyed here. So there's a ton of Ukraine flag Nazi supporting neocons that's saying stuff like Bernie Sanders is based.
Okay.
A ton of neocons coming to Bernie Sanders' defense. That's how low he has fallen. And I'm actually I don't know what order you wanted to go in, but here's Jimmy's.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, here's Jimmy's tweet, and then you can show the next receipt. Because there's just one of many, and we go through the thread actually. I think it'd be useful, and we can show the general response and our left wing algorithm Twitter to this. Now here's Jimmy. And I think this was a fantastic tweet. Bernie is now the willing face of evil. Now, this is why Jimmy Dore and myself make so many people in the establishment uncomfortable. Like, you even see Dr. Cornel West when he saw my Bernie video, he was like, damn, that nigga Nick. When Marianne Williamson heard my description of Bernie Sanders, she was like, no, if you feel that way, don't vote for me. Like, she was remember how horrified she was?
Yeah, she was
When I asked her
horrified.
about Bernie. They can't, and so many people hate me on the Bernie left simply because my criticism of Bernie is too mean. And that's why they hate Jimmy at the end of the day. And that's why me and Jimmy get along, because we are willing to call Bernie out for who he actually is. He is the willing face of evil, as he says. I honestly can't do the mental gymnastic it requires to not be sick to my stomach at the sight or mention of him, which is how I feel. Can you imagine working for him now as he does this? He slanders peace activists, for fuck's sakes. He's not only siding with actual Hitler Nazis right now, he's funding them. He's calling Trump corrupt while he funds Hitler Nazis and the slaughter of hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians. Now, this is the most important part. This is why I want to read this tweet, right? I honestly cannot wrap my head around the evil he's willingly and happily perpetuating on the world, not even a little. Now, I want to isolate on this point here, because last time I was on Glenn Greenwald's System Update, I was talking about this. There is not nearly enough anger at Bernie Sanders. And now we're starting to see it. Like this tweet, and we're going to show some more responses here. There is a massive amount of anger at Bernie now. Still not enough. Still not enough. This motherfucker stole hundreds of millions of dollars of working class people money, lying to them, only to turn around and do the bidding of the military industrial complex. And I go back to my tweet. I put Bernie Sanders above Obama at this point in terms of how open of a sellout they are. Bernie and his faction, they're just putting their head down, CJ. You think they don't hear this roaring amount of people screaming at how much they despise Bernie AOC? Now they just tunnel vision. And we can put our head down. We're going to enjoy these benefits. We're going to enjoy our social position. And we're going to keep it going. Now, last part of this tweet from Jimmy, which is the most important part. Imagine if he told the truth about Ukraine, it would change everything. I honestly just can't anymore. I really want to find a way to start an actual revolution or be as big a part of one as I can. Jimmy Dore, YouTuber over 1 million subscribers, comedian, no reason to call for a revolution, calling for a revolution. Unlike the same bread tube, Jimmy Dore derangement syndrome left, who hates this guy, they are also the same people who are the biggest advocates of incrementalism. The Sunrise Movement, the modern progressive movement, is a sham that advocates incrementalism when we have unbelievable problems facing us. Meanwhile, Jimmy is one of the few white leftist commentators that are pushing above incrementalism. So I think that's fantastic. We've seen this with Jimmy on Russell Brand when he's called for revolution in front of, I heard a godly amount of people watch that stream, like 80,000 live viewers I heard, which is fucking crazy. That's the number I heard. I didn't see it live. I heard there was like 80,000 people watching, because you guys know censorship doesn't work. When you try to censor someone, it only makes people more interested in watching them. So he had like 80,000 people watching live, and Jimmy called for revolution on a live stream, which if you are part of RB and left, you should fuck with that, right? I see one comment. Is Jimmy a Marxist? No. But it's upon us to walk these people who are ready for revolution to the steps needed to get to a revolution. So the fact that he's thinking like this is already above and beyond the average social democrat who do not want revolution because they prefer the capitalist model in place. That's why they fight for meaningless incrementalism. So it's great to see someone with the influence of Jimmy Dore calling for revolution. I'm going to sum it up there. I'm going long. CJ, pass to you. My point, period, is just great to see anyone especially that have influence, going above incrementalism. So CJ, I pass to you if you have any more receipts.
Yeah, just a couple of receipts, and then we'll move on to the next one, next topic. So here, Aaron Mate. I'll start with Aaron Mate's tweet, and I just want to read them and scroll through them. I look forward to one day seeing Congress no longer provide progressive dupes who fund and promote neocon proxy wars.
So Aaron Mate, keep it on Aaron for a second. Aaron Mate has the funniest and most interesting development when it comes to Bernie Sanders and the squad, because it's so public, right? I remember seeing maybe 2-3 years ago, I seen Aaron Mate on Jimmy Dore's show, and I remember him saying, "I'm not ready to say Fraud Squad yet." Do you remember that? We like,
Yeah.
he was, and this is not a criticism of Aaron, because Aaron does.
Yeah,
good
no,
work.
you're seeing the
But
progression.
Aaron, it's an interesting progression where you used to see Aaron used to say, "Yeah, I will openly criticize Bernie, openly call AOC a fraud," but he used to say stuff like, "I'm not willing to call them a fraud. I'm not willing to throw them under." But he used to say that on Jimmy's show, right? He went from that to after the Ukraine war. He's like, "Nigga, they are sellouts. Fuck Bernie, the squad, nigga, fuck all these." It's funny to see. Like, he straight up fuck the squad, Bernie Sanders, and it's been an interesting, fun progression. And it's the Ukraine war that did it. The Ukraine war, not only him, but Norman Finkelstein was another person who used to never criticize Bernie and them like that. Then after the Ukraine war, Finkelstein like, "Nigga, fuck Bernie. These people are full of shit." You guys, so many people in the NATO left still don't grasp how much they destroy the legitimacy with the Ukraine war, because there's so many academics, many professional managerial class, anti-imperialist workers who they still abide towards the civility politics, and they were still on board with Bernie and them. Then the Ukraine war, they're like, "We're done. They're enemy, and we're against them." And you're gonna see, look, that Cole Pink calling out Bernie as well.
Yeah, Cole Pink calls him out. I read, and they said, "Let us wage a moral and political war against war itself so that we can cut military spending and use that money for human needs." And when he signs it B, that means he actually wrote the tweet. And so that's Cole Pink and Aaron Mate calling him out. And look what Rome says. He makes a good point. Is it possible to open a class action lawsuit against Bernie Sanders for selling people out and funding his family's nonprofit, asking for a friend, and stealing working class people's money under false pretenses? And then you go on and say Bernie Sanders pulled the biggest fraud of the working class in my lifetime, even more so than Obama. Absolutely despicable pro-war sellout. Did you want to comment before I read the?
Now,
go ahead.
How many people since the Bernie campaign have became completely disillusioned because of politics? The betrayal of Bernie Sanders and the amount of resources that he stole, like asking $27 from struggling people. I still remember the Bernie rallies, town halls. I went to like 3 of them. You will never forget them. And that's where my anger stems, because I still remember there's a few scenarios that's burned in my mind. I still remember one of the rallies. I don't remember which one, because it was a long time ago. There was a rally where there's this 80-year-old man was like, "Man, I've been struggling for my healthcare for years. I've been bankrupt." He's on the verge of tears. Bernie look at him like, "Man, I really feel sad for you." He's like, "Man, this is why I've been so inspired by your candidacy, Bernie, because I wanted to fight and die for Medicare for all. I need Medicare for all more than anything else." And he's dinner crying, man. Everyone's emotional. And Bernie looks at him in the eyes. He's like, "I'm going to fight for you. I don't care what happens. I'm going to continue to fight for Medicare for all until it gets passed." And then the crowd erupts. I still remember that scene to this day, because I remember being emotional when I watched it, because it was one of those scenes I used to use to prop Bernie up. It went from him looking at a dying senior in his eyes, saying that he would fight for Medicare for all. Now he doesn't even mention it, fam. Now I'm wondering what kind of evil motherfucker can do that. What kind of evil motherfucker can have, God knows how many hundred people come to him and gave them sob stories to you. You promised them that you're going to fight for them, and then you betray them? How is that not more despicable than Joe Manchin, Barack Obama, and other people? Because if you look back at it, Barack Obama had a lot of signs. I was too young and I didn't have access to that information. But there was a lot of signs that Obama was going to sell out, right? But Bernie pulled the biggest heist, the absolute biggest heist, not in terms of resources, but emotional labor. He destroyed, and there's still many people who are nihilists because of it. Where they just gave up because fucking Bernie them sold them out. But I know you want to play the clips. I'll pass to you, CJ, so we can get to it.
And I'll let it play for the second time. I'll let it play all the way through. It's not even, it's not even 2 minutes, but this is Michael Parenti on Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, I think it's great. The trouble is he's still not saying anything about foreign policy. He's still not criticizing. The empire feeds off the republic. We don't need an empire with 70 military bases, 700 military bases all over the world. We don't need to be fighting 2, 3, 4, 5 wars all at the same time. This is crazy. That's all. Bernie hasn't said a word about those things. He hasn't. He's just not said anything about it. So he's good on local issues. He's really, I think he's a liberal Democrat. He's not a socialist or not even really a left progressive. He's just sort of he'd be a good liberal Democrat. But look at what he says. He says, and we want the rich to pay their share too. What do you mean? We want to stop having the rich rule our lives and rule our minds. That's what we want. And I think he could do a lot better on that. And he's going to have to say, it's not just me. I was alone years ago about his position on foreign policy, but a number of other people have brought it up now too. So he will have to start saying something about foreign policy, which would put him at odds with the national security state boys who play for keep. When you get into arguments with them, you got to be careful about your plane crashing or your car skidding and going off the road, or a lone assassin coming over and killing you, you know.
So Chris Hedges and Michael Parenti was 100% right about Bernie Sanders. 100% right. Michael Parenti is such a real one. He was close friends with Bernie Sanders. They used to have like dinner and shit. They was really close friends. Then Bernie Sanders sided with NATO in their horrific war against Yugoslavia. And then Michael Parenti told that nigga to lose his number after that shit. Michael Parenti is like us, fam. Like he's like, bro, I'm not playing this shit, fam. You supporting a NATO war? You don't accidentally support a NATO war. Get the fuck out of here, Bernie. Now he cut him off like straight up after that. That's the energy that we need, right? Not this, oh, well, they got to support this because you don't want to upset the staff. No, Michael Parenti told that motherfucker, get the fuck out of my house, lose my number, never talk to me again, you neocon motherfucker. How can you possibly be more based than Michael Parenti? I don't think it's possible.
Yeah, I hear his son. I think we're gonna get through. I think we'll be able to get to 2 more segments easily, no problem. But I hear his son is also pretty based, which usually it goes in the opposite direction, you know, where the parent is based, and then it kind of the apple falls further from the tree. But I hear that he's also pretty based, so that's good to hear that he raised a real one also. I do want to make sure we get this in because it's important. Condoleezza Rice and these black people are out here, Nick, making us look like fools. But if you want to read that, I thought you were gonna read it.
Oh, no, I'll just put it up there.
So let's.
Michael Parenti called out Noam Chomsky. True communists and socialists always prefer Michael Parenti over Noam Chomsky. Like it's all like Noam Chomsky. And I'll tell you guys this because I know I'm in the community. I know a lot of other communist thinkers, right? Like according to them, Noam Chomsky was always extremely overrated, and they criticized him for falling for anti-communist propaganda and Western chauvinism. And Michael Parenti and other communist thinkers have many criticisms of Noam Chomsky's takes, his Western-centric philosophy, and Gustavo was one of them. And that was the comment brought up there. So Noam Chomsky does get a lot of things right. Like I'm glad that he's been firm on Ukraine, exposing the war on terror, how the U.S. media operates. but no one's perfect, and no one has his limits. And social democrats tend to put him in that he's above criticism thing, and no one.
Yeah, they do.
He is smart. Like there are people that go overboard where they say, "Fuck no." No, Noam Chomsky has some good takes, but you gotta understand that motherfucker not perfect, and he has a social democrat Western perspective as well. And if you're interested, read Michael Parenti's criticism of him, because I remember I had my Bernie social democrat phase. I didn't know none of these criticisms of Noam Chomsky before. I used to be one of the people that put Noam Chomsky on the pedestal. And then I heard and I seen the critiques of Michael Parenti, and I realized that there's a level above. There, just like I realized there's a level above Bernie in terms of being militantly on the left. I learned that there was a level above Noam Chomsky, and that will most people reach if you reading Michael Parenti. So let's continue. This is a funny segment because
this is a funnier segment.
As we explained before, the House Negro is more committed to maintaining the order, the established system, than the slave himself. Now that's a not the exact quote, but that's what Malcolm X was saying. Not the exact quote, but that's the thesis of his quote. The House Negro cares more about protecting the master than the master himself does. Right. And I'm glad that you're doing this segment, because I wanted to I didn't have it put together yet, but I'm glad that you have it put together, because this shit was embarrassing. And by the way, despite this cringe, Miss Crockett, Jasmine Crockett, is a fucking liberal superstar now. Like, MSNBC love her. Yes. And despite how much they love her, Black Twitter and the majority of Black leftists was roasting her ass all over Twitter. Like there's a disconnect there. But let's continue. To I know you want to try and make that.
Yeah, and I'll give my little short. Yeah, I'll give my short little 30-second preface. Also, so this segment is the Negro servant, and it's more we were talking about the sellout. There's a lot of names. Kuhn. It's the person who is in a position of power simply because their willingness, or because of their willingness to go along with the white supremacy power structure. And this is one of those examples. And it is such a classic thing, and it's a Malcolm X quote, like you said, is that, you know, this is with a house nigga, and this is the scene of the movie, because I know this movie back and forth, so this is the scene of the movie. It goes, when Master is sick, goes to the Master laying down. We sick, Master? Are we sick? We sick? We sick. That's the mentality of the
I'm
Negro
glad he did it. I'm glad he did it.
Yeah, I know that movie back and forth, man. That's my favorite. So the Negro servant, and the reason I say by Ajamu Baraka is because his critique of this particular person in this video is spot on. And then it's a second video of Condoleezza Rice playing the same role at a much higher level. But kid me not, she is playing the same exact role that this other Negro servant is. But let's listen. It's only 1 minute and 22 seconds. Let's see if we can listen to the whole thing. It's hard, but let's see if we can.
Yeah, we play it all
but let me know. Yeah, let me know if you want to stop it.
President of the United States has committed. But when we start talking about things that look like evidence, they want to act like they blind. They don't know what this is. These are our national secrets. Looks like in the shitter to me. This looks like more evidence of our national secrets, say on a stage at Mar-a-Lago. When we're talking about somebody that's committed high crimes, it's at least indictments. Let's say 32 counts related to unauthorized retention of national security secrets, 7 counts related to obstructing the investigation, 3 false statements, 1 count of conspiracy to defraud the United States, falsifying business records, conspiracy to defraud the United States, 2 counts related to efforts to obstruct the vote certification proceedings, 1 count of conspiracy to violate civil rights, 23 counts related to forgery or false document statements, 8 counts related to soliciting, and I could go on because he's got 91 counts pending right now. But I will tell you what the president has been guilty of. He has unfortunately been guilty of loving his child unconditionally, and that is the only evidence that they have brought forward. And honestly, I hope and pray that my parents love me half as much as he loves his child. Until they find some evidence, we need to get back to the people's work, which means keeping this government open so that people don't go hungry in the streets of the United States. And I will yield.
Now do the 1994 crime bill. Go ahead, Nick. Like clown. This is clown shit. For you to go ham for this dementia, for these Democratic clowns that is putting our Black, brown, indigenous, and poor working class people in jail over the 1994 crime bill, you got the audacity, Nick, for people who are maybe not, who are non-Black, for Black people who are radicals, coons and sellouts are some of the people we hate the most. Yes. We hate these motherfuckers the most. Go ahead, Nick, if you're a Chinese.
Yes. I told you guys, I have Eric Adams derangement syndrome. Like, there's nothing worse than these Black congressional scumbag sellouts. So is she going this ham over Cop City? And I'm glad Terrain Walker go.
Yeah, let me go back to
that. He stole my point. Look at the first part he says. A star is born. Remember what I said earlier? I was just about to chime on it. She has an incredibly bright future with the Democratic Party. I don't know if you've seen it, CJ, but she went on a media tour immediately after this. We don't got enough time to show you those segments. It take too long. But she went on, CNN. She was on primetime CNN. She went on MSNBC. She chatted with Moore and Joe. She talked to everybody.
Yeah, she went everywhere.
Like, she became a liberal star overnight because of this. Because there's nothing that white liberals love more, than white Democrats love more, than a Negro that can have this kind of passion. They can bring out slang and vernacular to defend liberal Democrats. Like, is she going this hard for Cop City?
Nope.
Is she going this hard for the fact that 90% of the unemployment claims were Black in the last few months? Nope. Is she going this hard over the fact that Black, white, racial income inequality has gotten worse over the last 3 years? Despite the fact that according to 2020, racial income inequality was worse than the state during the civil rights movement? Is she going hard for that? Is she going hard for over the fact that Joe Biden bombed Somalia? Is she going hard for the fact that France and the West is trying to invade Niger? No Black issues. We're going to defend Jim Crow Joe. Like Train say, a star is born. In defense of Joe and Hunter Biden, I should read it. I wish we can get some sisters in government that passionate in defense of Black men and boys fed into the prison industrial complex via the crime bill you sponsor. I didn't read this tweet before, but that's absolutely on point, Train Walker. Absolutely on point.
Y'all gonna eat it up though, and that's exactly to your point.
I'm gonna see if I find Nico. The Nico tweet we gotta read, but I know I may have it.
Let me see. I saved a bunch of them. Yeah, I say we'll see if I have it, but let me go all the way down to the bottom and just show you all the ones I have, or show everybody while you're looking for yours. Here is a Jamu, the one, because he calls it Thomism. I do like that word Thomism, but here's a Jamu Baraka, and again, every time I bring him up, and Margaret Kimmy, I'm gonna start saying these are our elders. These are people like some of the most of the members on RBN, obviously all of us. These are the people we look up to. These are the elders that at one point they're going to be passing that baton to us. So This is why when he had the critique of the Rage Against the War Machine, like we did extreme on it, where people maybe didn't like that we were doing a stream. We was like, it's something we addressed. And we said, yeah, there's critique. And these are good points that he's making. That doesn't mean we're not going to participate. And we went on and sent Sabby. So just understand that's how I look at a Jamu. And let me read this. This new crop of Negro servants, and this is where I got it. The title is from him.
Yeah.
This new crop of Negro servants have taken Thomism to new level. Like the slave that fights harder than Massa to save the burning plantation house. These 21st century Uncle Toms will die for their Democratic bosses, but as Massa House burns, some of us are looking for a strong win. And he's alluding to another speech about another prominent Black radical. I think it was Malcolm X. He's saying looking for a strong win too. He's made that as far as let that wind blow down, let that wind engulf the house with flames, that plantation house. That is what that is referring to. And I love that from a Jamu Baraka. And you just let me know when you want to chime in. Here is Nico House, though, right here. I don't know if this is the one you were looking for, Nick.
I'm going to just say this in response to your quote regarding Black elders.
Yeah.
RBN been very clear about that. Like people like Jamu, Glenn Ford had a big influence on me. Personally, Black Agenda Report is fantastic, and that's who I believe most resemble RBN politics. That's why when you hear Vanguard and other people who hate RBN, like I seen it was like Ben Burgess and like the other guy who hates us but never try to talk about it. They say they like, well, they just the RBN is just a Jimmy Dore left. That we hear from a lot of people. And I'm like, when you look at all the people that we have on, like it's much more accurate to say the RBN is an orbit of Mark Kimberly or Glenn or Jamu Baraka and Black Agenda Report, at least in my politics. But they can't say that because if you're gonna try to smear us as right wing, you can't say we're like a Jamu Baraka and Mark Kimberly. That won't play right, even though we're very close with Jamu. We had Jamu on multiple times. He agreed with our politics. We agree with their politics, and the same with Mark Kimberly. So you can't say that RBN is a Jamu Baraka adjacent. But because they cultivated an audience with Jimmy Dore derangement syndrome, they say that RBN is Jimmy Dore left. And they just use that to smear us, even though we have so many connections with not just Black Agenda Report, but Palestinian Community Network, multiple labor organizations that we're close to as well. But that's an inconvenient talking point for a lot of these people. But let's continue, CJ.
So just to insert, so for you to visually see what we were talking about, how she's a star. This is Occupy Democrats. This is a Democrat outfit, of course.
Yep.
Look what they're saying right here.
Yeah, they always popping her.
Breaking: Democratic Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett unleashes an explosive viral speech slamming Donald Trump for stashing classified documents in his shitter. That line at Mar-a-Lago, infuriating Republicans with her hilarious bluntness. This woman is an absolute star, and coons get the riches. They're the ones that get the best clothes of the people that are oppressed. They're the ones that get the best meals. So she is getting exactly. Go ahead.
I was saying our boy Nico on point.
Here's Nico saying, imagine being a Black woman in 2023, capping this hard to protect a segregationist and his crackhead son.
And I love Nico because we always remind people, like Nico is as, if not more hated among the Bernie Sanders left than I am. Like there's probably only one other person that's Nico, because he reminds people that if you vote for Joe Biden, you voted for a racist segregationist. At the end of the day, you can justify, you can rationalize that all you want. The same way we call out these Negroes for defending Joe Biden, even though he's a racist segregationist who bombs Africa, who supports intervention into Niger. Not only is he a white supremacist in the past, he's an active white supremacist now, giving COVID relief money to the police state, funding ICE more than Donald Trump did. That is what Donald Trump did that made you guys call him a fascist. But Biden does it, and now he's just a normal neoliberal. No, he's a white supremacist fascist, the same way you guys would call Donald Trump. And I just want Dr. Cornel to say that, right? But go ahead, CJ.
Yeah, let me just, so you can hear in her own voice about a 45-second reaction. This is Abby Phillips. She has her own show, of course.
I'm glad you found one of these.
It's Black girl power now, and not in a good way. Because let's be clear, this is not the Black girl power we want. We want more like savvy Black girl power. That's what we're looking for around here. So let's listen.
He also did Joyanne Reed. I'm glad he found it, because I
God.
want you guys to know this is just one of many. Like, she went on a media tour. I think it's good to just play this because this kind of sums up all of them. I haven't seen this one, but she also did one with Joyanne Reed that was really Simone Sanders.
Simone Sanders. I saw that one too. Yeah,
I always get confused because Simone Sanders and Joyanne Reed is essentially the same person. Essentially the fucking same person. But she went on all these platforms. They're like, if you're Black and you got a corporate news show, we booking Jasmine Crockett on your show, whether you like it or not. She's a star. She's gonna be very hard to get rid of, and she have a great future in the Democrat Party. But let's continue, CJ.
So let me break this down. To be clear, Nancy Mace continued to cuss in this hearing. And my attitude is I will match your energy or exceed it. And I felt like I was going to use a better, way of using the word when I used it. So I did. And that was that.
What do you say, though, to people who just look at all of this? I mean, you mentioned Nancy Mace. We've seen some other things, Lauren Boebert and others, and Marjorie Taylor Greene.
It's hard, Nick, for me. I'm letting it play. It's hard.
Yeah, me too.
Matching energy with energy, is that always the right strategy? What do you say to people who say it's not?
I say that they don't understand what's going on in Congress and they don't understand what's going on in our country. Right now, I think historically, and I applaud those that have come before me, Democrats have always wanted to be the ones to say, this is how we are supposed to conduct ourselves. And they think that just by maintaining that type of decorum, that MAGAs and others will respond and do the same, but they don't. And so sometimes you got to make sure that they know that you can bring it as well as push back. And that's what you're seeing right now. The younger generation is pushing back quite vigorously. And I think a lot of the American people, not just young people, but I've got constituencies of all ages, and they tell me, thank you so much, because they're tired of us kind of sitting back quietly. And this is a very emotional thing. In that moment, I was very emotional for a lot of reasons. Number one, as an attorney, it was an affront to me that we are going through this sham impeachment where there is no evidence, and you didn't even try to bring one witness that could bring any evidence. There was no fact witnesses on top.
That's all I can take, and I'm not gonna play the rest of this shit, because what's sad to me and why, because I have daughters, man. I have black daughters. Of course, I would never. This is basically two. You ever watch The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air? This is that daughter. This is two Hillary Banks talking about nothing. Two Hillary Banks that are just part of the bourgeoisie, and you have a mic. Now you think you don't represent me. You don't represent black communities at all. Neither one of you. You don't represent anything that would help us. Quite to the contrary, both of you are in positions that's actually tearing down any sort of building up that could reduce repression, oppression for all types of marginalized people. What you're doing, pretending as if this is a good fight, Jasmine, who you're defending, as if this is some sort of honorable thing, and to pretend like this is an inquiry, a investigation. They're not supposed to be presented it as fact. This is an investigation. And the way you're spinning it in order, just because you're on a blue team, it's just disgusting to me. And I can't stand it. I don't know how you feel about it, but that's my final word on this, and then we can close this segment.
Yeah, this is infuriating. And this is why I despise liberal culture, right? Who are the people that you see? Who are the Negroes that you see on CNN? Right? You see Van Jones. You see these two Auntie Toms, right? Jasmine Crockett voted for Ukraine war funding. Wonder how sassy she's gonna sound defending that vote, right? So you guys are sellout neocons, and they present them on their channel. Will RBN ever be on CNN? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. We're not even allowed to go on social Democrat Bernie channels. They won't invite us on. So what do white liberals do by doing this? I want you guys to think about it. And you guys want to know why I view white liberals as racist as anyone else, probably more racist than anyone else? Because white liberals view her as the good Negro, CJ. How many white Democrats can't stand us? Why? Because we're the bad Negroes who don't go along with the Democrat Party. We are the bad Negroes who speak out against Ukraine war funding. So as angry I am as these people, the fact that these open sellouts are elevated by our white liberal corporate system, and they create an environment where outside radical black voices are shut out, they are perpetuating the highest form of racism. You guys understand what I'm saying? Anyone who fearlessly advocating for our community, the Black community, ending the police state, radical left politics, in the tradition of Fred Hampton, Malcolm X, MLK, we are locked out of political discourse. But pro-war sellouts like her are elevated among liberal media. That concept and the fact that they do this without a blink in an eye is why I cannot stand liberalism, and they are an enemy to our community because they give incentives for people to sell out. She's a superstar now because she defended Jim Crow Joe. And I can rant all day over the trespasses and why white liberalism and Democrat Party is bad for our community. But this manufacturing consent that they do, where they shut out anyone who advocate for real stuff while promoting fakes. Like they promote Hakeem Jeffries as a true speaker. Like, how is that? I know I'm being long-winded on this point, but how is that not more offensive than what anything Republicans do? You know what I mean? Republicans who are not good on racial issues, right? But Democrats are so bad, they mute and silence radical Black people while elevating liberal sellout Black people as the only voice. To me, I think this is a very critical sin that should not be forgiven. But CJ, I actually gotta get out here. I'm already a little bit late. Do you mind doing the last segment? Because I actually
I'm not doing any more segment. I'm just gonna play the Jamaal Bowman for this segment, the Negro.
Oh yeah, that worked.
Yeah, I'm just gonna play the Jamaal Bowman 30-second video from CNN to end this segment because he's also a Negro servant. I don't have time to do another segment, by the way. So if you needed to do one, I can't stay.
No,
but here is I just wanted to show this Negro servant actually doing some of the shucking and jiving because hey, the Democrats need to hold up this bill. So what do? Send in the Negro. He'll go ahead and fight harder than anybody. He'll take one for the team harder than anybody. And here he is pushing the fire alarm.
Yep.
Go ahead if you were going to say something before I play it, if you wanted to.
Yeah, he's arguably in deep shit over this. Like House Republicans are taking it serious. They're going to try to do an investigation. They're getting removed. And I'm explaining why that's very significant after the video. But
it's very
to your
short.
point, you want to take this heat and the possibility of him being removed for the massa, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, let's continue.
Yeah, so it's a minute long. So
he says it was an accident. He thought pulling the alarm would open a door based on the fact that the doors to his right there were locked, and there was a sign that he said he was. I think someone said it was confusing. I'll be honest, it doesn't really make sense to me, his explanation. Have you talked to him? What's going on?
I mean, listen, I think if you actually do see some of the photos of the signs, I think there's something to be said about the government's about to shut down. There's a vote clock that's going down. The exits that are normally open in that building were suddenly closed.
So you pulled the fire alarm?
So what I am here to say is that House administration and U.S. Capitol Police and Jamaal Bowman are an active, and he's fully participating in saying there was a misunderstanding. But what I do think is important to raise is the fact that Republicans, representatives like the caucus and others, immediately moved to file motions to censure, motions to expel before there has even been conversations that are finished to even see if there was a misunderstanding here.
Isn't that what y'all doing with Trump before any convictions? Aren't y'all trying to say take him off of ballots and stuff? But to the point, and that's the end of the video. I'll pass it to you because I know you wanted to say something. I do want to say this before I pass it to you.
Yeah.
And that is, there has been a picture that comes out of supposedly a picture of the sign that says something about pull the lever, irregardless of the sign. This fool has been working here. You get what I'm saying? This is not a place he does not know. He has been working here. So I think he could be using this. He knew that was there. He could say, I can just say I misunderstood. I work here every day. I know I've already seen the sign. I know what I'm really supposed to do. But if they catch me, at least I have the out. It's a plausible out that he's given with this. Go ahead if you had anything to say on that.
Jamaal Bowman was a high school principal, fam. Do you guys know how many fire drills and that you do as a high school principal? Do you know that as a high school principal, you have to learn all the fire ordinances? Like Jamaal Bowman knows what a fire alarm is, fam. The idea that he's pretending that he did not is hilarious. And you realize the best argument that they have, and the argument that even Jamaal Bowman is putting out there is, yeah, I'm a bit of a dumbass, I know. He's like, yeah, I'm a bit of a dumbass. I was trying to open the door using a fire alarm, right? So doesn't that show that we, in the best case scenario, we don't live in meritocracy? Jamaal Bowman and the people elected to Congress are considered high thinkers, people who actually care about these issues. Jamaal Bowman didn't know what Crimea was, CJ. My guest from last week, Liam exposed that from the gray zone. We had a great conversation at Nick and Night. He didn't know what the fuck Crimea is. So isn't it something that the dumbest among us get elevated to the level of politicians, right? Jamaal Bowman. But the most important part of this analysis is why the Republican Party is going after Jamaal Bowman, CJ. And this is what AOC and them not mentioning. So why did they go after January 6th protester, fam? They locked up January 6th protesters for illegally disturbing a congressional proceeding. So you have, excuse me, you have all these criminal justice advocates, all these abolitionists, right? All these Olayemi Democrats, right? Who they was abolitionists, they speak out about the ills of criminal justice. They went from that to supporting locking up January 6th protesters, and these people got insane sentences. I don't give a fuck what your politics is. Everyone should be against that. How the fuck are you an abolitionist, but you're okay with the government giving people 10 to 15 years for a protest? How is that in our best interest? So these people who abolitionists, criminal justice minded, all of a sudden they start cheering for it. And CJ, you want to know the argument that the January 6th defendants used? They didn't know what they did was illegal. A lot of them claim ignorance, CJ.
That's the same thing Jamaal was saying.
They said we didn't know. A lot of them are saying a combination of we didn't know what we was doing was illegal. Some of them say use the proof that the police opened the gates, and they're like, "Oh, we thought we was allowed in." You have Republican politicians that said that we should protest. So a lot of them saying that we didn't know what we was doing is a felony. You want to know what the Democrats' response to that was? It doesn't matter that you don't know. It doesn't matter that it was an accident. Doesn't matter if you was misled. Doesn't matter if you didn't know you should go to Congress. Your ass should go to prison. Those same people are now like, oh, Jamaal Bowman didn't know. No, I want to show you guys this because this is what been going around after this story. Because remember, all these people on the left, I'm still abolitionist. I co-founded Thin the Man. I believe in rehabilitation. Like people, you interviewed Scott Reed, you know he did this. I believe in rehabilitation, period, fam. But this is what they switched from that to we're gonna lock up drunk rednecks, dumb people, maybe you can say, but just innocent people. They didn't commit a violent crime. They didn't do anything bad. They just was misled on what they could do. That's the argument a lot of them making. So they heard Jamaal Bowman. No one in this country is above the law, except you, right? Because Jamaal Bowman pulling the fire alarm technically interrupted a congressional procedure. So what AOC did not say during that interview is that Republicans have Democrats checkmated, which is why there's talks now. I saw this earlier today. Jamaal Bowman being expelled. And the reason why, because this is horrible. That's why you see CNN shit on him. MSNBC even shit on him. Even people who follow the Democrats shit on Jamaal. Because this is such an ongoing. Jamaal Bowman is such an idiot. He fucked things up for Democrats, CJ. I'm going to explain this if you didn't know. So now Republicans are saying, I thought you guys cared about interrupting congressional proceeding. You guys locked up all these January 6th protesters for essentially doing the same thing Jamaal Bowman did. Right? So if you guys don't go after Jamaal Bowman, you guys need to fucking let all the January 6th people out. And now Democrats are checked. People like AOC are checkmated. So you guys show harsh authoritarian policies towards ordinary people, but Jamaal Bowman doesn't get the same treatment? I thought you guys said that Trump and everything wasn't above the law, that no one's above the law. So this case puts Democrats in a tough position after what they said on Trump. Now, I'll read this real quick. I know you got to go here. Jamaal Bowman's obstruction of Congress is a crime perhaps 3 times over. Now, throughout this article, I know we don't got time to read it, they list all the crimes that he committed. And not a Republican talking point, and they even mention how you can legitimately, here it is, falsely pulling, and remember, this from MSN, this is not Republican speaking, falsely pulling a fire alarm probably also constitutes illegal obstruction of congressional proceedings, a felony under the law. The same thing they called January 6th protesters for. So now Democrats are pissed that Jamaal Bowman put him in this position. So he may face consequences, and that's the reason why he may. Now, I won't be surprised if he don't, because we know how things are. But this concept I'm explaining to you guys is why Jamaal Bowman may be one of the few people who face consequences. Now, this is our favorite post-Duopolis meme maker. This video is fantastic. I think this is a great way to end the stream. Now, this is Jamaal Bowman speaking on the Jamaal Bowman fire alarm issue here.
We got you. We got you. And more to come. Clown, thug, crook, criminal.
Negro servants, boy.
Anyway, that's the video looping now, but you guys can see that's what a real clown looks like. Actually, I want to see it again. It's only 30 seconds. This is fucking glorious. Like both Duopolis make brilliant videos. You see how he put in the receipts of the crimes that he committed?
Yeah.
This video is glorious for so many reasons. Because if Jamaal Bowman was intellectually consistent, if AOC was intellectually consistent, should be calling for Jamaal Bowman to be prosecuted. So let's watch this one more time. I love this video, man.
We got you. We got you. And more to come. Clown, thug, crook, criminal.
This fake last laugh.
Well, if you guys don't know, if you haven't seen the original video we reacted to a long time ago, that was Jamaal Bowman's video after Trump got arraigned or whatever. The first time, it was around that same timeline. So he put this cringe video laughing at Trump for being a criminal. Woo. Oh, that come up is something, isn't Jamaal Bowman? So, that's the same way to wrap the statement. CJ, I know we got to go.
We don't got nothing else. You don't got nothing else. It's just funny. It's just clown shit from a clown. I mean, Jamaal Bowman is just making memes of himself and not even trying. It's just classic Jamaal Bowman. So, but yeah, I think we got 1 or 2 super chats that are new, and then we can get out of here. I thought I saw one. It may not even be one. Oh no, a super sticker. Super sticker. Go ahead. You can go. You put yours up first.
I think there's just 2 more that we had to read. I think for the 50 HK, I don't know what currency that is. September 28th, Republican proposed stop paying State Department going to Clinton Global Initiative events. Ref's reason I disagree. Debt conspiracy. Barbara Lee responds. Clinton Global Initiative is not. Did Barbara Lee say that? Well, Barbara Lee is trash.
She's terrible. She's terrible. She's terrible.
There was for a very long time she was considered good because she voted against the Afghanistan war. But your valor only lasts so long, and that's what people need to understand about John Lewis. And I still remember, there was so many liberals upset at me and Rome. Me and Rome still talk about this to this day because it's something that we hold our head high on. Where John Lewis died, and we're like, nigga, fuck John Lewis. This dude sold us out. You guys know the reason why Obama was able to commit genocide and destabilize Libya and Syria because John Lewis helped strip congressional approval for launching wars. It was an effort that he helped whip the votes for. So the same thing that applies to Barbara Lee. Yeah, you got Afghanistan, right? But you're now voting for Ukraine funding. You know what I mean? Like you could, and people like to lift you up for your good what you did in the past, but that is overridden if you're not consistent. And people have the exact opposite approach for some reason. They say, well, it's okay that John Lewis sold you out because he marched in the civil rights movement. I'm like, no, the fact that he marched in the civil rights movement, that makes it worse that he sold us out.
Right.
Like, you don't understand that? Right.
That doesn't
So
excuse
the fact that
him.
Barbara Lee voted against the Afghanistan war, the fact that she's going pro-war now almost makes it worse. So anyway, that's my long way of saying fuck Barbara Lee. That's a shocking statement that she said there, but it doesn't surprise me because she's sunk extremely low. But she's a Democrat.
This one right here. Can you
that's
help
not-
get
yeah,
Q Anthony on Midwestern
Q
Mars?
Anthony,
Has he been trying? Are you just requesting you want to see him together? Or are you saying that Q has been trying to get on and he can't?
Yeah, we're not Midwestern Mars manager, but I'm sure Midwestern Mars would love to have him on.
Yeah.
I need to have Q Anthony back on this channel. Like, it's been too long, so I might have to reach out to him now that you mentioned it. It's been too long. So maybe tonight.
And Ashura says we got you RBN shirt. He bought a RBN shirt. So shout out to everybody that got merchandise. Thank you so much. Man. Yeah, me too. Thank you so much, Ashura, and everybody that sent the super chat and bought our merchandise. Anything else, Nick? No closing video. We're just gonna jump out because I gotta get going.
Yeah.
Anything else, Nick, before we head out?
Nah. Thank you guys for watching. I got a lot of guests I'm working on right now.
I'll
announce them here later. What we've been doing recently is Nick and CJ on Friday. I love CJ been killing it with his new daytime slot. And then we got Nick and Sabby and JB on Thursdays. Sabby does her show about twice a month on Fridays. So we always got a lot of great content. So the most important thing to do is check to see if you're still subscribed, because that's something I still get hit with. And one of the things that hurts smaller channels the most when they remove people's subscription. So make sure you still subscribe and hit the bell and follow us on Substack so you get updated on all these streams. Because we got a lot of great content coming up here soon. I got a lot of things I'm working on as well. Savvy's at the Boston Anti-War March, so there's a lot of great stuff going on in RB here with our chapters. I'm going to get ready. We got a few fundraisers we're wrapping up. But at the beginning of November, I'm going to start my coats, my mutual aid run for coats and winter clothes, because when I did my school supplies mutual aid last month, they were like, yeah, man, school supplies is great, bro, but we need clothes. That's like what everyone was telling me, CJ. They're like, yeah, nigga, I'll take the school supplies, but you got some clothes, bro. So after that, I literally I told you guys this before. I took like 2 families and I gave them clothes instead of school supplies. So I'm like, nigga, fuck, next time I'm doing coats for winter.
Yeah, that's a good idea. That's a good idea.
That's what I'm gonna do. I'll maybe start that in November, start fundraising for December, but I will make sure we finish our current fundraising and everything.
Yeah,
we got a lot of great stuff. I've seen people in Kansas City hit me up after they saw the my school supply mutual aid. They hit me up afterwards. They're like, nigga, what we can do to help? I'm like, oh shit, bet. So we growing, man. We getting people already volunteered to organize with us, and that's before I officially announced the code giveaway. Because there are people that are like, oh, shit, I didn't know you were doing a mutual aid event. I would help you if I knew you was doing one this time. So I gotta do better job advertising this time, but just for more support. So we got a lot of stuff coming up. CJ, pass to you for any last thing you want.
Yeah. All right, Nick. I'll see you. And no outro video. Just gonna end it here. Thank you for watching. Hit that like button on your way out.